Chapter 35:14. Yun Zhongtian and Yun Guanghui's faces darkened at the sight before them. It was one thing for a junior to behave like this, but now even an ancestor-level elder was behaving like this. Where was the decency? Wasn't this an embarrassment to the Yun family? Great ancestor, aren't you going to discipline your younger sister? She's not behaving like an elder, having no manners at all. If anyone were to see this, wouldn't they laugh their heads off? Yun Guanghui had nowhere to vent his anger and could not help but complain to Yun Zhongtian. Yun Zhongtian smiled bitterly. How could he discipline her? This younger sister of his had never been disciplined by him since she was young. Moreover, now, the golden-winged wolf king was drinking heartily, and if he were to reprimand him now and ruin the atmosphere, angering the golden-winged wolf king, it would not be good. So, there was really nothing he could do. Xiang does not return home all year round and I only have this one son by my side now. I don't want him to go to waste like this. Yun Guanghui sighed inwardly. Don't worry, he won't. Although the golden-winged wolf king loves to drink, but whether it is in terms of ability or other aspects, he is outstanding. Your son will only benefit from following him. Moreover, they have not reached the point where they are addicted to alcohol. Yun Zhongtian thought to himself. I hope so. Yun Guanghui sighed. Yun Zhongtian looked at Qin Feiyang and said apologetically, Brother Qin, I'm sorry to have made a fool of myself. It's all right. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and smiled, asking curiously, why would Yun Zifeng address Yun Zhengyue as big sister? For Yun Zhengyue to address him as little brother. Isn't that messing up the hierarchy? Yun Zhongtian laughed bitterly and explained, this younger sister of mine does not like others calling her old, so the children in the family all call her big sister. If you were to call her great ancestor, she would be unhappy instead. I see. Qin Feiyang shook his head and laughed. Speaking of this, he could not help but think of Qin Rushuang. Qin Rushuang's situation was similar to Yun Zhongyue's. Originally, according to seniority, they were both at least at the level of great-grandmother, with a difference of several generations. However, when she interacted with people like the Mermaid Princess and Luo Qingzhu, she had to address her as big sister. She herself did not mind, so what could others do? He could only say that her heart was as she wished. Yun Zhongtian sipped a mouthful of tea and said with a smile, Brother Qin, the reason we've come here this time is mainly to thank you. Because all this while, we have not been able to properly thank you. No need. We're all business partners. It's only right that we help each other. Qin Feiyang smiled. Yun Zhongtian said guiltily, but up till now, it has always been you who has been helping us, while the help we have given you has been practically nil. The future is long. According to business people, I'm investing first. Qin Feiyang chuckled. Looking at the young man before his eyes, Yun Zhongtian was suddenly filled with a myriad of emotions. For the sake of the Yun family, Qin Feiyang had truly put in a lot of effort. Therefore, no matter what, the Yun family would never forget this kindness. Whoosh! At this moment, accompanied by the sound of the air shattering, Pei Dason shot through the air like a bolt of lightning, landing beside Qin Feiyang. Glancing at Yun Zhongtian and the others, he bowed and said, Greetings to the young lord. The Yun family had already moved to the Black Tortoise world for several decades, and Pei Dason naturally knew about it. Towards Yun Zhongtian and the others, Pei Dason was no stranger. After all, as Pei Tianhong's son, he naturally had some understanding of the main characters of the major forces. And Qin Feiyang nodded and smiled. I don't need to introduce myself? No need, no need. Pei Dason waved his hand. Yun Guanghui also smiled. Brother Pei and I can be considered old friends. Pei Dason nodded with a smile and leaned over to Qin Feiyang's ear, whispering a few words. What? When Qin Feiyang heard this, he glanced at Yun Zhongtian and Yun Guanghui, his brows raised slightly before looking at Pei Dason, asking, Are you sure? I'm sure. Right now, they are in a city in the eastern domain called Thousand Mountain City. Hongyu and I have tried to persuade them, but they did not take it seriously, so I could only come back to report to you. As for Hongyu, she is now in Thousand Mountain City keeping an eye on them to prevent any deaths. Pei Dason nodded. Deaths? Yun Zhongtian and Yun Guanghui were taken aback and asked suspiciously, What's so serious? Pei Dason ignored the two and looked at Qin Feiyang, asking, "Young master, how do you think this matter should be dealt with?" Qin Feiyang closed his eyes and released his perception. After a while, he opened his eyes and with a wave of his hand, an image immediately appeared in the void in front of him. The image showed the streets of a city. There were no less than hundreds of people gathered on the streets at this moment. These people were all citizens of Thousand Mountain City, but at this moment, they were all looking at the two young men standing in the middle of the crowd with righteous indignation. The two young men were about 20 years old, with tall and straight figures and extraordinary looks, but the arrogance between their brows was undisguised. Between the two young men, there was a woman in white. This woman was Pei Hongyu. At this moment, Pei Hongyu looked at the two young men with an extremely ugly expression. Behind Pei Hongyu, there was a 17 or 18-year-old girl, dressed very ordinarily, but she looked very sweet. But at this moment, there was a striking palm print on her face. Yun Zhongtian and Yun Zhongfeng immediately stood up and looked at the two young men, their faces full of surprise. "Isn't this Yun Zishan and Yun Zimo?" Yun Zifeng looked up and a trace of surprise appeared on his face. "What's going on?" Hearing this, Yun Zhongyue looked up at the situation in the image with a suspicious look in her eyes. Qin Feiyang didn't say anything as he quietly looked at the screen. In the image, not only could everyone be seen clearly, but even their voices could be heard. "Who the hell are you? How dare you bully men and women in broad daylight? If you don't explain yourself today, don't even think about leaving Thousand Mountain City." The surrounding citizens surrounded the two young men so tightly that not even a drop of water could trickle through. Their eyes were filled with rage. Bully men and women. When Yun Zhongtian heard this, he was immediately shocked. These two unfilial sons. Yun Guangwei roared and turned to look at Qin Feiyang, saying, "Brother Qin, don't be angry. I'll go and bring them back now and discipline them well. There's no hurry." Qin Feiyang waved his hand, his eyes fixed on the image. Yun Guangwei looked at Yun Zhongtian for help. Yun Zhongtian was also very anxious, but he did not dare to act rashly. In the image, facing the angry citizens around them, the two young men did not realize the slightest mistake. Instead, their eyes were full of contempt as they looked around and said, "What bully? Don't talk nonsense. We just said a few words to her." "Say a few words? The moment you came, you asked the young lady if she wanted to go to the restaurant to have fun. Your words were frivolous and unbearable. She didn't want to, but you forced her. She resisted, but you hit her. Look at the young lady's swollen face. Do you think we're all fools? If this isn't bullying, then what is?" The surrounding citizens were getting angrier. Even so, the two young men did not have the slightest attitude of admitting their mistake. They were arrogant and domineering. "Everyone, please calm down. I will definitely give you a satisfactory explanation for this matter." Pei Hongyu glanced at the two young men, then looked at the surrounding citizens and smiled apologetically. "Miss Hongyu, we believe you, but you have seen the attitude of these two people. Do they look like people who have done something wrong?" Whether it was the former Miss Fire Lotus or the later Pai Lupi and Theta Wong, the two lords have always warned everyone that in the Black Tortoise world, whether it's humans or beasts, we must cherish peace and have manners. It is also because of everyone's efforts that the Black Tortoise world is so peaceful today. All these years, not to mention our Qinshan city, even in the entire eastern region, even in the entire Black Tortoise world, there has never been a case of a woman being molested in the streets. That's right. They don't even have the most basic morals. They are simply scum. Today, they must kneel and apologize to the young lady. The citizens roared angrily. I know. Pei Hongyu nodded and looked at the two young men, saying in a deep voice, "You are the disciples of the Yun family and are indeed born to be superior, but don't forget that you are now in the Black Tortoise world. This is not a place where you can behave atrociously. If you know what's good for you, quickly kneel and apologize. Otherwise, when the young lord comes, not even Yun Zhongtian can save you." A joke? You want us to kneel and apologize to these trash? Who do they think they are? And you, Pei Hongyu, what right do you have to order us? Your blood hall, your Pei family, are now Qin Feiyang's prisoners. To put it bluntly, you are Qin Feiyang's servants, but my Yun family and Qin Feiyang are partners. Our status in the Black Tortoise world and your Pei family are on two completely different levels. So what if Qin Feiyang comes personally? My Yun family is powerful and now we have a sovereign divine weapon in our hands. Even Qin Feiyang has to rely on my Yun family. How dare he touch us? Their eyes were full of disdain. Bastard! How dare you insult our Lord Sovereign? The people around them were even angrier, and many people even pounced on the two. A bunch of ants, how dare you attack us? The two's eyes turned cold, and their auras erupted. Their cultivation had reached the great perfection imperishable realm, and they were many times stronger than the people of Qianshan City. Immediately, they fell to the ground in a complete mess. How dare you? Pei Hongyu was furious, and her pressure rolled out. The two immediately spat out a mouthful of blood and were sent flying. After all, Pei Hongyu was a great perfection sovereign. How could these two be compared to her? Pei Hongyu, how dare you hurt us? Just you wait, when the great ancestor comes, Qin Feiyang won't be able to save you. The two immediately roared with resentment. Good. I'd like to see if Yun Zhongtian dares to come and kill me. Pei Hongyu sneered and stepped forward to break the two's legs. She forced them to the ground and shouted, "Apologize to me. Not just this little girl, but all the people here. Don't even think about it. You stinking woman, you're dead. I guarantee it." The two of them roared hysterically. How uncultured. Pei Hongyu's eyes flashed coldly, and she raised her hand to slap the two's faces. Chapter 35:15. The Devil's Lands. At this moment, it was dead silent. Qin Feiyang sat on the stone bench, silent, his gaze calm. No one knew what he was thinking. The white-eyed wolf twisted the wine jug in his hand, drinking mouthful after mouthful, as if nothing was happening. But it was because of this that the atmosphere became heavier, more oppressive. Sometimes, a silent person was scarier. Yun Zhongtian and Yun Guangwei were sweating profusely from nervousness. Yun Zhongyue put down his wine cup, glancing at Qin Feiyang from time to time, feeling a great pressure. Pei Dason was also nervous, looking at Qin Feiyang. "Young lord, you can't blame Hongyu for this. She has given you enough face. If it weren't for Yun Zishan and Yun Guangwei attacking the civilians, Hongyu would not have acted so rashly." Qin Feiyang finally retracted his gaze, looking at Pei Dason with a smile. "Did I say that I blame her?" Pei Dason was stunned. He had thought that the Yun family was really Qin Feiyang's honored guests, so he assumed that Pei Hongyu beating up Yun Zishan and Yun Guangwei in public might have angered Qin Feiyang. It was because of this that he hurried back to report this matter to Qin Feiyang. Otherwise, he would have done it himself. But now that he heard it, it didn't seem to be the case. "You don't need to worry. Pei Hongyu has done well. If because of this matter, someone comes to seek revenge on you and your sister, then they will be my, Qin Feiyang's, enemy." Qin Feiyang enunciated each word clearly, his eyes filled with killing intent as he turned to Yun Zhongtian. "Senior Yun, don't you agree?" "Yes, yes, yes." Yun Zhongtian nodded repeatedly, cold sweat trickling down his forehead. Who didn't understand the meaning behind those words? It was a warning to the Yun family. Qin Feiyang continued, "Then, Senior Yun, tell me what is going on. Did I not make myself clear enough?" "Yes, yes, yes." Yun Zhongtian nodded, looking at Yun Guangwei. "Speak. What is going on?" Yun Guangwei quivered, hurriedly saying, "On the day we moved to the Black Tortoise world, I've already passed down the order that no one is allowed to cause trouble in the Black Tortoise world. I don't know what's going on." "Then why are they in the eastern region?" Yun Zhongtian said furiously. "This." Yun Guangwei looked rather flustered. "Speak." Yun Zhongtian shouted out explosively. "It's like this. When everyone arrived at the Black Tortoise world, they felt that everything was new and interesting. Therefore, many children wanted to go to the eastern, western, northern, and northern regions to experience it. I thought it would be good to let them go and gain some experience, so I approved it. But before I left, I really told them not to cause any trouble. Old ancestor, don't worry. I'll definitely discipline him strictly in the future." Yun Guangwei was furious as well. Why were all of them so useless? She kept causing trouble for him. Now that he looked at it this way, Yun Zifeng was actually less worrisome. Yun Zhongtian glared at Yun Guangwei, then turned to Qin Feiyang with a smile. Brother Qin, it's our fault for not disciplining them strictly. Please forgive us. Please don't be angry. We'll immediately bring them back to the central region and punish them severely. Punish them severely? That means they're still alive. The white-eyed wolf chuckled. Yun Zhongtian and Yun Guangwei were stunned, quickly looking at the white-eyed wolf. What did he mean by that? The white-eyed wolf glanced at the two of them and smiled. It looks like you two really haven't realized how important the people of the Black Tortoise world are in little Qinzi's heart. This big brother will be kind enough to tell you that if you put the people of the Black Tortoise world together with your Yun family, he will choose the people of the Black Tortoise world without hesitation. The two of them felt a chill in their hearts and asked, then how should we deal with them? I've already said it to this point. You still don't understand? Think about it yourself. After the white-eyed wolf said that, he picked up the wine jug and started drinking on his own. The two of them looked at each other, their faces gradually darkening. Was he going to kill them? The two of them couldn't help but look at Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang held the teacup and drank silently, his face expressionless. Seeing this situation, the two of them couldn't help but swallow the words that were about to come out of their mouths. His attitude was very clear. There was no room for negotiation. Qin Feiyang finished the tea in his cup. Seeing that the two of them were silent, he put down the teacup and said, "It looks like you need me to help you decide." The two of them trembled and hurriedly waved their hands. No, no. Qin Feiyang looked at the two of them and waited quietly for them to continue. Kill. The two of them gritted their teeth and nodded. Then let's kill. Qin Feiyang stood up, and with a thought, a group of people immediately descended in the sky above Qianshan City. It's the Lord Ruler. Greetings, Lord Ruler. As soon as the people in the city saw Qin Feiyang, they immediately bowed and saluted. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, I'm sorry to have made you suffer. It's okay, because we know that the Lord Ruler will definitely deal with it impartially. The people roared. Thank you for your trust. Qin Feiyang smiled slightly and landed in front of the little girl. He reached out and touched the bright red palm print and said with heartache, Are you okay? I'm fine. The little girl didn't fear Qin Feiyang at all and was full of respect and worship. Qin Feiyang took out a divine life pill and put it in the little girl's mouth. Then, he personally helped the little girl up and said with a smile, Don't be afraid. I'm here. I'm not afraid. The little girl shook her head. So sensible, so cute. Qin Feiyang rubbed the little girl's head and looked up at the two young men under Pei Hongyu's feet. Young master. Pei Hongyu also hurriedly flew in front of Qin Feiyang and bowed. Please punish me, young master. You're protecting everyone. Why should I punish you? Qin Feiyang asked with a smile. Pei Hongyu was stunned and a little surprised. Old ancestor, you have to uphold justice for us. Yun Zishan and the other young man climbed up and quickly ran to Yun Zhongtian to complain. It would have been better if they had not said those words. The moment Yun Zhongtian heard those words, he slapped them across the face and the two young men were sent flying, crashing into the hard street as blood gushed out from their mouths. Old ancestor, you. The two young men looked at Yun Zhongtian in disbelief. Yun Zhongtian shouted angrily, Look at what you've done. You still have the face to ask this old man to uphold justice for you. Old ancestor, isn't this just a small matter? The two young men were dumbfounded. Indeed, back in the southern continent, to the Yun family, such matters were not worth mentioning. But they had forgotten that they were not in the southern continent, but in the Black Tortoise world. Small matters in the southern continent, in the Black Tortoise world, were not allowed. Small matter? Yun Zhongtian laughed in anger. His hands clenched tightly as he closed his eyes. Yun Guang, do it? Do it? The two young men looked at Yun Guanghui in shock. Yun Guanghui took a step forward. Looking at the two young men, he sighed. You have to pay the price for your wrongdoings. Close your eyes. I'll give you a quick death. Uncle, what do you mean? Are you going to kill us? Uncle, you can't do this. We're your nephews. Are we not comparable to these trash? The two young men shouted in fear. Trash? Qin Feiyang muttered and laughed. Before your Yun family entered the Black Tortoise world, there were many people who came to the Black Tortoise world, including the Devil Hall's Hall Master, Elder Hua, Dizzy, the Rogue Cultivator Alliance's Chief, Vice Chief, and the Hall of Famers. But no one dared to say that the people of the Black Tortoise world are trash. Without my Yun family's help, what are you? The two young men roared. Ha ha. Qin Feiyang laughed. The white-eyed wolf and Pei Dason laughed as well. But when the surrounding commoners heard their words, they were enraged. Stubborn. Yun Guangwei was also enraged. He raised his hand and slapped the two young men. With a slap, the two young men were sent flying. Uncle. The two young men roared. Shut up. My Yun family doesn't have unfilial children like you. Yun Guanghui roared, his eyes filled with killing intent. Qin Feiyang looked at the two young men and said to Yun Guanghui, we'll kill them later. Bring them to the middle ground first. Middle ground? Yun Guanghui was stunned, but he immediately understood what Qin Feiyang meant. He wanted to make an example out of them. He couldn't help but sigh inwardly. These two bastards had caused him so much trouble. Qin Feiyang looked at the surrounding commoners and said with a smile, don't worry. From today onwards, these two will never appear in front of you again. We believe in Lord Sovereign, but we won't go so far as to kill them. What we're angry about is that they clearly made a mistake, yet they don't know how to repent. What's worse is that they actually looked down on Lord Sovereign. So, we'll teach them a lesson. Smiles appeared on everyone's faces, all of them kind and honest faces, causing Yun Zhongtian and the others to feel ashamed. This was the quality of the Black Tortoise world's inhabitants. Compared to these people, the Yun family's descendants weren't even fit to carry their shoes. Qin Feiyang lowered his head to look at the little girl beside him and asked with a smile, will you forgive them? As long as they change, I can't forgive them. The little girl nodded. Good girl. Qin Feiyang rubbed the little girl's head and said with a smile, work hard and cultivate. Okay. The little girl giggled. Huff. Qin Feiyang took a deep breath and turned to Yun Guangwei. Take them and leave. Yun Guangwei immediately stepped forward and grabbed the two young men. Qin Feiyang waved his hand, and a group of people immediately landed in Middle State. There was a newly built city below. This was the Yun family's home in Middle State. The city wasn't very big, but there were a few 100,000 people living in it. But it was very prosperous. As for the families of Pei Tianhong, Wang Changyuan, and the others, their lives were much simpler. They did not have a majestic city, nor did they have tall walls. They lived in the mountains and lived in harmony with the beasts of the central continent. In the past, Qin Feiyang didn't think much of it. But now that the Yun family had arrived, there was no doubt that it was a stark contrast. Although Pei Tianhong and the others' families used to live a life of luxury, ever since they came to the Black Tortoise world, they had shed their glamour and restrained their spirit. They were like ordinary people, living a carefree life. However, the Yun family still preferred that kind of luxurious, extravagant, and leisurely lifestyle. However, Qin Feiyang wouldn't care about such things. After all, everyone had a life they liked. It didn't matter what they wanted, as long as they followed the rules and didn't cause trouble for the Black Tortoise world. Chapter 35:16. However, some people just didn't know what was good for them and had to touch his bottom line. The people of the Black Tortoise world had always been selfless for him, and he would never allow anyone to hurt them. Everyone from the Yun family, come out, Qin Feiyang shouted. His voice was like a bell, resounding in all directions. Whoosh! Immediately, one figure after another flew out of the city. In less than 10 breaths, the people in the city came out and gathered in the void. Isn't that Yun Zishan and his companion? Why are they in such a sorry state? When they saw Yun Zishan and his companion, the faces of the Yun family were full of surprise. Shaner, two middle-aged men flew out from the crowd. They were Yun Guanghui's two younger brothers, Yun Guangrong and Yun Guangyao. Yun Zishan and his companion were their two sons. Yun Guangrong looked at Yun Guanghui and Yun Zhongtian and said angrily, Big brother, old ancestor, what happened? Who beat them up like this? Me. Pei Hongyu said. Pei Hongyu? The two were slightly stunned and immediately looked at Pei Tianhong and shouted, Why did you do this? My Yun family has nothing to do with your Pei family. You have nothing to do with us. But they bullied and humiliated the young master in the East region. They deserved it. Pei Hongyu snorted coldly. What? The two were shocked and looked at Yun Zishan and his companion. Is it true? It's true. But we didn't do anything. We just said a few words and gave that woman a slap. What's the big deal? Father, save us. Uncle said he wants to kill us. The two cried out with a look of grievance. What? Kill them? Yun Guangrong and his companion's eyes trembled and quickly looked at Yun Guangwei. Big brother, is this true? Yes. They deserve to be killed, Yun Guangwei said in a deep voice. Until now, they were still saying that it was just a slap and that it was no big deal. They simply wouldn't change. Big brother. Although they are wrong, they don't deserve to die. Yun Guangrong and his companion hurriedly cried out. That's right. The people of Qianshan have already said that they have forgiven us. Why are you pretending to be good? Yun Zishan coldly snorted. Hearing those words, not to mention Yun Guangwei and Yun Zhongtian, even Yun Zhengyue and Yun Zifeng were enraged. How could he be so self-righteous after making a mistake? He even scolded them in an eccentric manner. How could the Yun family have such a disciple? Yun Guangyao said, since the other party has already forgiven them, then there's nothing for us to pursue. The people of Qianshan City can forgive them because they are kind, but I can't. Qin Feiyang finally opened his mouth, his tone revealing a bone-piercing coldness. Yun Guangyao and Yun Guangrong were shocked. They quickly looked at Qin Feiyang and cupped their hands. Brother Qin, if they have offended you in any way, I hope you can be magnanimous and forgive them. After all, they are still children. Two perfect imperishable stage cultivators, and their children? When Qin Feiyang heard this, he wanted to laugh, but he couldn't, because he realized that he had overestimated the Yun family. If he had known that the Yun family was filled with such people, he would never have gone through so much trouble to help them, not to mention bringing them to the Black Tortoise world. Brother Qin, can I apologize to you on their behalf? Yun Guangyao looked at Qin Feiyang with a pleading look. Not everything can be solved with an apology. Qin Feiyang smiled coldly, his gaze sweeping over the Yun family members below. I've already told Yun Guanghui and Senior Yun that once the Yun family enters the Black Tortoise world, no one is allowed to harm the people of the Black Tortoise world, not even the fierce beasts. Yun Guanghui has also warned you. So why did such a thing happen? The hundreds of thousands of people were silent. It's because you all simply did not place my, Qin Feiyang's, words in your eyes at all. I think it's very interesting. It was me who helped your Yun family and gave you a place to stay. So why do you think that your guests invited by me? Qin Feiyang, do I have to rely on your Yun family? I want to ask, who gave you the confidence? Who gave you the courage? Yun Zhongtian? Yun Zhongyue? Or your Yun family's sovereign divine weapon? Let me tell you, if I can let the Yun family obtain this sovereign divine weapon, I can also make you lose it. Don't jump around in front of me all day. You're not qualified to be my sovereign divine weapon. Qin Feiyang's gaze was extremely cold. His words were merciless, causing many of the Yun family members below to show dissatisfaction. Not satisfied? Don't talk about the sovereign divine weapon. Just the few of you, I, Qin Feiyang, can easily deal with you. This is strength. I've already been very polite to you, so don't go too far. From now on, restrict the Yun family's movements, except for the central state. No one is allowed to go anywhere. If anyone dares to step into the western, eastern, southern, or northern regions without permission, they will end up like these two. The moment Qin Feiyang's words fell, his eyes were filled with killing intent. His palm fell, the law of karma surged out. Yun Zishan and Yun Guanghui screamed as their bodies shattered in the void, their blood staining the sky red. Shaner! Yun Guangrong and Yun Guangyao bared their teeth and roared. Qin Feiyang, you've gone too far. Boom! Their eyes turned red as their aura surged out, pouncing towards Qin Feiyang. Courting death, the white-eyed wolf shook his head. Qin Feiyang's face darkened as he sneered. Seems like killing two juniors today isn't enough. With a single thought, the law of karma came crashing down from the sky, sending the two flying. So strong. Everyone in the Yun family trembled as they watched this scene. What kind of power is this? Yun Guangrong and Yun Guangwei steadied themselves as they looked at the law of karma in the sky. This is the law of karma of the black tortoise world. You little trash, I can exterminate your family in a matter of minutes. The white-eyed wolf's face was filled with disdain. The law of karma. Hearing this, Yun Zhongtian's eyes flickered as he took a step forward and slapped Yun Guangrong and Yun Guangwei, causing blood to flow from the corner of their mouths. Old ancestor. Both of them roared. Shut up. If you dare to be presumptuous again, not to mention Qin Feiyang, this old man will personally slaughter you. Yun Zhongtian barked. Both of them trembled. Yun Zhongtian hurriedly turned around to look at Qin Feiyang and said apologetically, Brother Qin, it's all our fault. Please be magnanimous and forgive us. I assure you that such a thing will never happen again. Yes, I promise you as well. Yun Guangrong quickly added. His back was already drenched in cold sweat. Qin Feiyang glanced at the two of them, then glanced at the Yun clansman below, and said indifferently, All right, I'll give you one more chance. Immediately call the other Yun clansmen in the 4 major regions back. Thank you. Both of them thanked him repeatedly. Pei Daisen, Pei Hongyu. Qin Feiyang said again. Subordinate is here. The two of them walked up to Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang said, From now on, whoever dares to cause trouble, whoever dares to step out of the central region, kill them all without mercy. Yes. Both of them nodded respectfully. In their hearts, they were actually quite happy. After working so hard for so long, they had finally gained some trust from Qin Feiyang. After Qin Feiyang left, the white-eyed wolf glanced at Yun Zhongtian. Grinning widely, Old man, did you know? Because of these descendants of yours, you will miss out on a great fortune. Ah, Yun Zhongtian looked at the white-eyed wolf in shock. What great fortune? Looks like you're not as lucky as Pei Tianhong and the others. The white-eyed wolf grinned, looking at Yun Zifeng. Little brother, let's go. All right. Yun Zifeng was taken aback, quickly nodding his head and following the white-eyed wolf, flying towards the Devil's Land. Great fortune. Pei Daisen and Pei Hongyu looked at each other, their eyes filled with desire. Of course, they knew what this great fortune was, because they were working hard for it now. Yun Guangwei scratched his head, looking at Pei Daisen and Pei Hongyu, asking, Brother Pei, do you know what this fortune is? Haha. Pei Daisen and Pei Hongyu looked at Yun Guangwei and chuckled, turning around and leaving without a word. Yun Guangwei's face was full of suspicion. Yun Zhongtian was also looking like a monk who could not make head or tail of the situation. Old ancestor, big brother, what are you doing? Although we live in the black tortoise world, there's no need to be so humble. Yun Guangwei and Pei Hongyu ran up to Yun Zhongtian and Yun Guangwei, shouting angrily, Humble myself? When the two heard this, they were instantly enraged. Yun Guangwei also raised his hand, slapping each of them, saying angrily, Didn't we already tell you about our Yun family situation? Don't you understand? If it weren't for Qin Feiyang, we would be dead. Moreover, this matter was originally Yun Zishan's fault. To be honest, if you were in this situation, you would be even angrier. Qin Feiyang is still considered magnanimous, not venting his anger on our entire Yun family, nor did he chase us out. So, cherish this opportunity. Yun Guangwei shook his head and sighed, adding on, I know, but there's no need to die. Yun Guangwei was still unconvinced. Are you not going to listen to my words? Death is still too easy for them. If our entire Yun family is implicated because of this, even if we grind their bones to dust, it won't be enough to appease the hatred in my heart. Yun Guangwei said angrily. Yun Guangwei and Yun Guangyao looked at each other, lowering their heads in silence. It seemed that they were quite afraid of Yun Guangwei. Yun Zhongtian also looked at the two and said in a deep voice, Yun Guangwei, Yun Guangyao, let this old man warn you. Don't even think about taking revenge on Qin Feiyang. If you anger him because of you, this old man will not let you off easily. After saying that, he looked at Yun Guangwei and said, From now on, you must restrain your subordinates. If something like this happens again, I will hold you responsible. Yes. Yun Guanghui nodded. My head hurts. Yun Zhongtian rubbed his forehead and turned to look at Yun Zhongyue, saying, accompany me to the demonic land again. This matter must be completely forgiven by Qin Feiyang. All right. Yun Zhongyue nodded and answered straightforwardly. She was not going there to apologize, but for the divine brew. Chapter 35:17. In the Devil's Land. Qin Feiyang returned to the Devil's Land and sat in the tea garden, drinking tea and trying to calm the irritation in his heart. The white-eyed wolf and Yun Zifeng were still carelessly drinking a jar of black tortoise divine brew each. After drinking for a while, the white-eyed wolf felt a little stifled. He looked up at Qin Feiyang and said, Little Qinzi, if you're really unhappy, just drive them out. Is there a need to sulk over there? Yes, yes, yes. Some people don't know what's good for them. There's no need to help them. Yun Zifeng also nodded. Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf couldn't help looking at Yun Zifeng in astonishment. Why are you looking at me like that? Although Yun Guangrong and Yun Guangyao are my second and third uncles, and although Yun Zishan and Yun Zifeng are my cousins, I don't have any feelings for them. I'll say it in one sentence. I've never had a good impression of these two cousins. Not only in the Black Tortoise world, but in the southern continent, they were also standard playboys. If it weren't for this, not to mention you, I would have gotten rid of this evil long ago, Yun Zifeng said faintly. Yun Zifeng said indifferently. He did not care about the two's deaths at all. Qin Feiyang laughed involuntarily. This kid was indeed different from the rest. At least he hadn't misjudged Yun Zifeng. He was indeed a good young man. Yun Zifeng bared his teeth and said, But Qin Dage, don't drive me away. I don't want anything from you. It's just that I can't leave this divine brew. Qin Feiyang smiled bitterly. It seemed that the white-eyed wolf had already taken a liking to this kid. The white-eyed wolf patted Yun Zifeng's shoulder and chuckled. Little brother, don't worry. With your brother wolf here, no matter how much courage he has, he won't dare to chase you away. You think you're so great? Qin Feiyang's face darkened. All day long, he didn't teach anything good. All he did was play around with fancy stuff. I didn't say that. You said it. Since you said that I'm amazing, then it seems that I'm really amazing. The white-eyed wolf grinned. Looking at the white-eyed wolf's shameless appearance, Qin Feiyang was speechless. To be able to train one's skin to be so thick, it could be considered a skill. Whoosh! At this moment, Yun Zhongtian and his sister came tearing through the air. Sister Yu. Yun Zifeng immediately waved his hand and shouted. Yun Zhongyue looked down, and a smile crept onto her face. She landed beside the white-eyed wolf and Yun Zifeng, and then extended her hand in front of the white-eyed wolf. You really don't know what being polite is. White-eyed wolf snorted and took out a bottle of black tortoise divine brew. We're here on official business. Why are you still drinking? Looking at this scene, Yun Zhongtian was extremely helpless. If it weren't for his age, he really wanted to go up and give Yun Zhongyue and Yun Zifeng a tight slap each. With such a big thing happening, as a member of the Yun family and a core member of the Yun family, couldn't they help out a little? Now, both of them were drinking, as if it had nothing to do with them. Qin Feiyang glanced at Yun Zhongyue, also a little speechless. How could a woman like to drink so much? Was it because she was too old? Brother Qin. Yun Zhongtian looked at Qin Feiyang and bowed. Regarding today's matter, I'm really sorry. I hope you can forgive me. Qin Feiyang looked at Yun Zhongtian, pondering for a moment, and said with a faint smile, Senior Yun, have a seat. Yun Zhongtian was a little hesitant. Qin Feiyang smiled. Don't say that if I don't forgive you, you'll keep standing. Yun Zhongtian smiled sheepishly. He really did have such a thought, but after hearing what Qin Feiyang said, he felt that for someone of his age to do such a thing, it was a little childish. So, he sat down beside Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang poured a cup of tea and gently retreated to stand before Yun Zhongtian, sighing, Senior, I'm actually not angry at you. I just feel that many of your Yun family members do not have a heart that knows how to repay kindness. To be honest, if you were to encounter such a situation, you would be even angrier than I am. I understand. Yun Zhongtian nodded and then sighed softly, saying, But there's no other way. After all, There are hundreds of thousands of our family members below. Their moral character and quality are definitely not the same. Of course I know that. That's why I did not make a move just now. Just take it as a warning to them. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. Thank you. Yun Zhongtian's face was filled with gratitude. Qin Feiyang waved his hand, muttering to himself as he sipped his tea. Suddenly he said, Senior, let me take you to a place. All right. Yun Zhongtian nodded. Qindage, where are you going? Hearing this, Yun Zifeng looked up at Qin Feiyang and asked suspiciously, a place where you can understand me. Qin Feiyang smiled. Ah. Yun Zifeng and Yun Zhongyue exchanged a glance, their eyes filled with curiosity. Qin Feiyang glanced at the two of them, putting down the teacup in his hand. With a wave of his hand, a group of people appeared above the western domain. This place is? Yun Zhongtian and the other two looked at the blood sea below in shock. They could be considered experienced and knowledgeable, but this was the first time they had seen such a huge blood sea. Qin Feiyang explained, You may not know, but the truth is, the western domain is a blood sea. There's not a single living thing. Ah, the three of them were bewildered. They really did not know about this matter. Although they had been in the Black Tortoise world for several decades, they had always been in the Central Oblast. Needless to say, Yun Zifeng had always been in the Devil's Lands and had never gone anywhere else. The western domain was so big, but there was not a single living thing. It was a blood sea? Qin Feiyang waved his hand again, and in the void in all directions, images appeared. There were humans, fierce beasts, old people over 70 years old, and even children of 5 or 6 years old. Without exception, they were all donating blood. What's going on? The three of them looked at this scene with puzzlement. Qin Feiyang sighed. They are all living things from the Eastern Domain, Southern Domain, Northern Domain, and Central Oblast. They came all the way here to donate blood because of me. Because of you? The three of them looked at Qin Feiyang suspiciously. That's right. Qin Feiyang nodded and asked, You all know about the slaughter domain, right? Of course. It's comparable to a sovereign divine weapon. The three of them nodded. Yes. The slaughter domain can compete with a sovereign divine weapon. However, opening the full power of the slaughter domain requires a large amount of blood to complete. Qin Feiyang said, Blood. The three of them exchanged glances, then looked at the images around them. In other words, they are all donating blood to prepare for you to open the slaughter domain? That's right. All these years, I don't know how many times I've opened the slaughter domain, nor do I know how much blood I've absorbed, but every time I open the slaughter domain, it's their blood that I've absorbed. Moreover, I've never forced them to donate blood. It's all voluntary, because they know that I need a large amount of blood to open the slaughter domain. So every time the blood sea dries up, they would voluntarily come forward to donate their blood. Take a look. Even those 5 or 6-year-old children are willing to donate their precious blood. Old Senior Yun, do you think I can send people to harm them? Qin Feiyang sighed deeply. Every time he thought of the sacrifices the Black Tortoise world had made for him, his heart was filled with guilt. So that's how it is. Yun Zhongtian and the other two murmured. This scene gave them too much of an emotional impact. Without any coercion, all of them volunteered to donate blood. Even the cold-blooded fierce beasts and the naive children were the same. How big of a favor was this? They finally understood why Qin Feiyang was so protective of the Black Tortoise world. It was to repay their kindness. Although the Black Tortoise world's crystal veins, spirit veins, herbs, elixirs, divine weapons, and divine arts were all given to them by me, compared to their efforts, I feel that these things I've given them are nothing more than small favors. Therefore, I constantly swore in my heart that I would protect them well, and not allow anyone to bully them. So when I found out that Yun Zishan and the others were bullying the people of Thousand Mountain City, I was really angry, especially when I saw the palm print on that little girl's face. To tell you the truth, I really had the urge to wash your Yun family in blood. Qin Feiyang said. Yun Zhongtian and the other two were silent. In fact, this kind of thing is indeed a small matter, but in my eyes, it's intolerable. Because they are my bottom line, my reverse scale. Therefore, I hope that old Senior Yun can understand this junior and restrain our people well in the future. Qin Feiyang looked pleadingly at Yun Zhongtian. Yun Zhongtian took a deep breath and nodded. Don't worry. If this kind of thing happens again, this old man will directly cut off my own head and present it to you as an apology. Thank you. Qin Feiyang bowed deeply and looked at the surrounding images again. In one of the images, a little boy around 6 years old had just finished donating his blood. Pressing on his wrist, he looked up at a middle-aged man beside him and asked, "Daddy, why do we have to come here every year to donate blood?" The middle-aged man rubbed the little boy's head and smiled. "Because our Lord Ruler needs it." "Why does our Lord Ruler need so much blood?" the little boy asked innocently. "You're still too young. You won't understand even if I tell you. You just have to remember the beautiful life we have now, the superior cultivation environment we have. It's all because of our Lord Ruler. He's our guardian deity. Whether it's a person or something else, we must know how to repay kindness. So we must contribute our strength to help our Lord Ruler." The middle-aged man smiled. "All right, I will remember Daddy's words and become a man who repays kindness." The little boy nodded, his eyes shining with a resolute light. "That's right. Not only must we repay kindness, we must also work hard to become a man like our Lord Ruler, one who is responsible and responsible. Only then will our lives not be in vain." The middle-aged man smiled faintly. The little boy nodded vigorously. "All right, let's go home." The middle-aged man smiled and led the little boy away with a suave turn. Chapter 35:18. Yun Zhongtian and the other two looked at the father and son leaving in the image and couldn't help but feel moved. Because they didn't see any selfishness in this father and son. Especially that father, when educating his child, he was full of positive energy. This was a scene that would never be seen in the sky cloud realm. In the face of such warmth, even a person with a heart of stone would be melted. At this time, they had a new understanding of the Black Tortoise realm and Qin Feiyang. The creatures here, be it humans or dire beasts, were worth protecting. They also finally saw clearly what kind of person Qin Feiyang was. After leaving the western region, Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf returned to the Devil's Land. Yun Zifeng wanted to follow, but was rejected by Qin Feiyang because they had other things to do. Yun Zhongtian and Yun Zhongyue returned to the central region and once again warned their clansmen, especially Yun Guangrong and Yun Guangyao, not for anything else, but for the cute people and beasts of the Black Tortoise realm to not harm them anymore. 2 days later, Qin Feiyang finally adjusted his state and walked out of the castle. Looking at the white-eyed wolf who was drinking on the side, he asked, "Do you think we should go to the other 3 forbidden areas? Isn't that up to you?" The white-eyed wolf rolled his eyes at him. Qin Feiyang lowered his head and pondered. "Is there a need to be so conflicted? If you want to go, then go. Maybe the other 3 forbidden areas also have places of inheritance. Even if we can't find an ally, it's not bad to get 1 or 2 inheritances. If you don't want to go, then plan to deal with the dragons and the second princess," the white-eyed wolf said. "I want to go, but I really don't know the position of the 3 forbidden areas." Qin Feiyang frowned. "You don't even know who the 3 forbidden areas are. How can you figure out their position? If you ask me, no matter what position they have, let's kill our way in first." The white-eyed wolf waved his claws indifferently. "If only it were as simple as you said." Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled bitterly. If they met the dragon's opponents, it would be fine. Even if they couldn't become allies, their lives wouldn't be in danger. But if they were unlucky and met the dragons as allies, they would have to face the danger of being hunted. So, now it was equivalent to gambling. The ingrate waved his paw impatiently and said, "Then take your time to think about it. Are you going or not?" "Of course." Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes at it and said with a frown, "I'm just hesitating. Which forbidden area should we go to first?" That's a good idea." The white eyes s. The corner of Qin Feiyang's mouth twitched as he directly kicked him. "What's not bad?" Why don't we just pick one? If we really meet the dragon's allies, we'll just run for our lives," the white-eyed wolf said. Qin Feiyang looked at the white-eyed wolf and nodded. Okay, we happen to be on Sea Lion Island in the Western continent. Let's pick the closest region. That's right. Don't be so wishy-washy. Just do it. The white-eyed wolf bared its teeth. Qin Feiyang smiled bitterly. He also wanted to be quick, but at this time, he had to be careful. After all, with their current strength and foundation, there was still a long way to go before they could compare with the four forbidden areas. The white-eyed wolf asked, "Then should we bring Yun Zhongtian?" "This? Let's ask him first. It's best if we can go together. After all, he was born and raised in the Sky Cloud realm. He knows the situation of the region better than us." Qin Feiyang said, "I'm not thinking about that. I'm thinking about his sovereign divine weapon. With one more sovereign weapon, even if we run for our lives, our chances will be higher." The white-eyed wolf grinned. "We haven't even started, and you're already talking about running for your life. Isn't that bad luck?" Qin Feiyang glared at it fiercely and turned to look at the ancient castle. "Then I'll leave the Black Tortoise realm to you for the time being. Be careful," the ancient castle warned. Entering the region might be the same as entering the Een Demon Land. They couldn't enter the Black Tortoise realm and couldn't open the Slaughter realm. When they encountered danger, they could only rely on Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf's own abilities. Even if they couldn't, only the horsetail whisk could help. And Qin Feiyang nodded. The white-eyed wolf rolled its eyes and looked at Qin Feiyang. "You go find Yun Zhongtian first. This brother has something to take care of." After saying that, without waiting for Qin Feiyang's response, it grabbed the wine jar and flew away like lightning. Qin Feiyang sighed helplessly. It was obvious that this damn wolf cub was going to find Jiaoxi to get the wine. Following closely, Qin Feiyang closed his eyes and released his perception. Soon, he found Yun Zhongtian, and with a thought, Yun Zhongtian appeared in front of him. And Yun Zhongtian was a little suspicious at first, but when he saw Qin Feiyang, a smile appeared on his face and he asked with a smile, "Is there something you need from this old man?" "There is indeed something I want to discuss with Old Senior. This junior is going to make a trip to the region, so I wanted to ask if Old Senior is interested in going with me." Qin Feiyang smiled. "The region?" Yun Zhongtian was taken aback for a moment, and his face suddenly became serious. "That is not a good place. When I was young, this old man went there several times, and every time I survived." "You've been there? Then where is the deepest place you've been?" Qin Feiyang asked. "The central region," Yun Zhongtian replied. "Is that so?" Qin Feiyang nodded. If it was only the central region, then Yun Zhongtian's understanding of the region was almost zero, because only by entering the inner region can one be considered to have officially stepped into the region. As for the central region, the border region, and the outer region, they are just ordinary adventure grounds. Interest, there is definitely. Not to mention this old man. Any living being in the Sky Cloud realm is interested in the inner and core regions of the four major regions, but no one has the ability to enter. As long as Brother Qin doesn't mind this old man being more of a hindrance, this old man is willing to accompany Brother Qin on this trip. Yun Zhongtian laughed hoarsely. "You're too kind. This junior can't ask for more." Qin Feiyang hurriedly waved his hand. A supreme master with a sovereign weapon. How could he be more of a hindrance? Too modest. Whoosh. White-eyed wolf rushed back and looked at Yun Zhongtian before looking at Qin Feiyang and asked, "How is it?" "Old Senior Yun is still very loyal," Qin Feiyang said with a smile. White-eyed wolf laughed and looked at Yun Zhongtian. "Old man, do your best. Who knows, you might have a chance to get that great fortune." Yun Zhongtian was stunned and asked, "What kind of fortune is it?" This was not the first time White-eyed wolf had mentioned it, and he was really curious. "You will know when the time comes." White-eyed wolf bared his teeth and looked at Qin Feiyang. "Big brother is ready. Let's go." "How much did you take?" Qin Feiyang asked. Not much, just a few thousand jugs." White-eyed wolf chuckled. Qin Feiyang's face darkened. A few thousand jugs was not much? "Are we going or not?" White-eyed wolf looked at him impatiently. Go, go, go. But let's go to Lion King Island and Sky Cloud Island first," Qin Feiyang said. "Delivering wine again?" White-eyed wolf frowned. "Our relationship is still maintained." Qin Feiyang chuckled. With a wave of his hand, the two men and one wolf appeared above Sea Lion Island. Seeing that Sea Lion was cultivating, Qin Feiyong did not disturb it and had White-Eyed Wolf open a space-time portal and directly descended above Lion King Island. This is Lion King Island? Yun Zhongtian looked at the island below with a trace of surprise on his face. Although he was an overlord, he rarely set foot in the heavenly cloud sea. Because in the eyes of giants like him, the heavenly cloud sea was no less dangerous than the four forbidden lands. Naturally, he knew about the Sea Lion Emperor and the other Beast Emperors. He also knew a thing or two about the Beast Emperor's lairs, but it was his first time stepping into one. Honored guests, please forgive me for not going out to meet you. Accompanied by a gentle laughter, a young man flew out from the mountain below and landed in front of Qin Feiyong, the White-Eyed Wolf and the White-Eyed Wolf. Senior. Qin Feiyong cupped his hands and smiled. Sea Lion King laughed. You brat. You definitely don't come to the temple for no reason. Speak? Senior, don't say that. It's quite embarrassing. But this time, Junior really didn't come for anything. I'm just here to deliver wine. Qin Feiyong smiled slightly. Deliver wine? Sea Lion King was taken aback. Qin Feiyong looked at White-Eyed Wolf and said, Take out 1,000 jars. What? 1,000 jars? White-Eyed Wolf's expression froze. I know you want to build a good relationship, but you don't have to be so generous. Hurry up, Qin Feiyong urged. All right. White-Eyed Wolf waved his paw, and 1,000 jars of unparalleled divine wine appeared. He looked at Sea Lion King and snorted, You're lucky? Haha. Sea Lion King laughed heartily. Looking at the divine wine in front of him, his eyes were burning with passion. He then looked at Qin Feiyong and said, Then I won't be polite. What's there to be polite about? We're all on the same side. Qin Feiyong waved his hand and looked at White-Eyed Wolf again. Take out another 1,000 jars. What? White-Eyed Wolf's face was dark. Is there no end to this? He took out another 1,000 jars gloomily. Qin Feiyong looked at Sea Lion King and said with a smile, These 1,000 jars of unparalleled divine wine are for the other 7 senior Beast Emperors. I'll have to trouble you to pass it to them. You're sensible. No problem. I'll send it to them later. To tell you the truth, I originally wanted to keep the divine wine you gave me last time, but those 7 old things came to my place to play and found the divine wine. They divided it on the spot and said that it wasn't enough. Before they left, they said that the next time I meet you, I must get a few more jars from you. Now, I'm giving them 1,000 jars. When they see it, they will definitely be happy. Sea Lion King laughed. It's good that the seniors like it. Qin Feiyong chuckled. He didn't expect the 8 Beast Emperors to like this. Then it's easy to handle. In the future, he will give them some from time to time. Chapter 35:19. Sea Lion Emperor asked, Then let's go to the cave for a while? No need. Qin Feiyong waved his hand and smiled. I still have to go to my big brother's place. Are you going to deliver the wine too? Sea Lion Emperor was taken aback and laughed. Yes, this big brother of mine. You must know better than me that the days without wine are worse than death for him. Qin Feiyong smiled. Sea Lion Emperor couldn't help but smile bitterly and nodded. All right, since you are going to Sky Cloud Island, I won't force you to stay. Come and play when you have time in the future. Okay, this junior will take his leave. Qin Feiyong cupped his hands and bowed, then asked the White-Eyed Wolf to open the teleportation channel and turned to leave. Sky Cloud Island. When Qin Feiyong and the White-Eyed Wolf appeared, they didn't see any trace of the little rabbit. Obviously, it was teaching the madman and others to cultivate. Yun Zhongtian glanced at Sky Cloud Island and looked at Qin Feiyong in surprise. Brother Qin, the big brother you just mentioned, could it be the little rabbit here? That's it. I've become sworn brothers with senior brother Psycho and that thing. Qin Feiyong laughed. This? Yun Zhongtian was stunned. Was this a joke with him? How could the little rabbit become sworn brothers with a human? But looking at Qin Feiyong's appearance, he didn't seem to be joking, and even the Sea Lion Emperor knew about it. It was unbelievable. How did these 2 brats do it? They actually had a relationship with the little rabbit. And in addition to the little rabbit, Their relationship with the Sea Lion Emperor seemed to be good. One must know. Powerhouses like them regarded the Sky Cloud Sea as a forbidden area, and Qin Feiyong and Mad Manimo were actually sworn brothers with the Little Rabbit, which really made people envious. No wonder the White-Eyed Wolf and Snowflake brought them to the Sky Cloud Sea when they were transferred. In the eyes of others, the Sea of Heavenly Clouds was a terrifying place, but in the eyes of Qin Feiyong and the others, it was equivalent to their back garden. Yo, little brother, you can't survive outside anymore, so you're here to seek refuge with Big Brother? Suddenly, accompanied by a strange voice, the little rabbit rushed out from the mountain below. That's right, I can't survive anymore. Big Brother, please take me in. Qin Feiyong smiled flatteringly.
Scram.
How shameless. Do you think Uncle Rabbit doesn't know what you've done in the southern continent? The little rabbit rolled her eyes at him. Qin Feiyong was stunned for a moment, then he smiled and said, So Big Brother has been secretly watching this little brother all this time. I'm touched. White-Eyed Wolf, quickly send over 2,000 jars of unparalleled divine wine to show our respect to Big Brother. 2,000? The White-Eyed Wolf's mouth twitched. He braced himself and took out 2,000 jugs of divine wine. Not bad, not bad. Filial piety. The little rabbit was also beaming with joy. With a wave of her paw, she grabbed a jug of wine and drank. Qin Feiyong pointed to Yun Zhongtian and said with a smile, Big Brother, let me introduce you. This is Yun Zhongtian, my partner now. When he comes to the Heavenly Cloud Sea in the future, please take care of him. Greetings to Uncle Rabbit. Yun Zhongtian bowed. The little rabbit glanced at Yun Zhongtian and nodded. All right, as long as you don't hurt the sea beasts of the Heavenly Cloud Sea, you can do whatever you want. Thank you, Uncle Rabbit. Yun Zhongtian was just overwhelmed by the unexpected favor, because this meant that he could step into the Heavenly Cloud Sea at any time in the future, and there would be no danger. It was equivalent to opening the door to the Forbidden Land, which would be of great help to the Yun family in the future. All right, the wine has been sent over. You can scram now. The little rabbit waved her paw. Heartless. Qin Feiyong shook his head, looking sad. Too enthusiastic, Uncle Rabbit is afraid you can't take it. The little rabbit laughed, her eyes filled with evil intentions. All right, I'll leave right away. Qin Feiyong saw that the situation was not good and quickly waved his hand and looked at the White-Eyed Wolf. The White-Eyed Wolf was also quite afraid of the little rabbit and quickly opened a space portal, and then the 2 men and 1 wolf ran in without looking back. Brat. The little rabbit shook her head and laughed. Swish. Just as the portal disappeared, the Sea Lion Emperor suddenly appeared beside the little rabbit and said enviously, I only got 1,000 jars, and you got 2,000 jars. As a sworn brother, you are indeed closer. Of course. The little rabbit smiled proudly, but suddenly frowned and said, Wait, they gave you 1,000 jars? Yes, and a few other old friends, they also gave me 1,000 jars, so each of them can get more than 100 jars. The Sea Lion Emperor nodded. Damn, so generous? All right, give your 1,000 jars to Uncle Rabbit, and the remaining 1,000 jars, the 8 of you can share equally. The little rabbit shamelessly stretched out her paw. The Sea Lion Emperor's face darkened. Even taking by force, she was so righteous? What? Not happy? The little rabbit raised her brow. Cough, cough. The Sea Lion Emperor coughed and regretted coming to Sky Cloud Island. He asked, Are they going to leave for a while? I guess so. Every time they come to deliver the wine, they will disappear for a while. I guess this time, they are going to a forbidden area. The little rabbit nodded. It seems that they are really going to go against the 4 forbidden areas. The Sea Lion Emperor shook his head and sighed. Isn't that good? The answer they are looking for is in one of the forbidden areas. If they don't go there one by one, how will they find it? The little rabbit smiled faintly. True. The Sea Lion Emperor nodded and pondered for a while before asking, When are you going to tell him the secret hidden in the Sky Cloud Ocean? Tell him? The little rabbit raised her eyebrows, looked at the Sea Lion Emperor, and said in a deep voice, Is it because Qin Feiyong gave you some wine that you began to feel compassion? Look at what you are saying. Am I that kind of person without principles? The Sea Lion Emperor was dissatisfied. Good that you know. Friendship is friendship, rules are rules, we can't go against the principles. These things, let him slowly dig it out. We just need to quietly watch. The little rabbit said, All right. The sea lion emperor nodded. The little rabbit turned hostile on the spot and shouted, Don't change the topic. Quickly hand over the wine. Otherwise you can forget about mingling in the sky cloud ocean in the future. In your dreams. The sea lion emperor looked at the little rabbit with disdain and disappeared without a trace. At the same time, in a certain place, space and time were in chaos, and heaven and earth were falling. In that void, all kinds of power of laws intertwined, exuding a destructive power. At the edge, a young man sat cross-legged on the ground. He was wearing a white robe, with an extraordinary appearance and an outstanding temperament. His thick black hair fluttered in the wind. Around him, there were also storms that filled the air. That was not an ordinary storm, but a space-time storm. Boom. Suddenly, the white-robed young man opened his eyes. His eyes were as dazzling as the sun. As he waved his hand, the space above him collapsed and turned into pieces of ice crystals. They floated above his head and released an unparalleled aura. I finally comprehended it. Looking at the pieces of ice crystal fragments, the young man in white was quite excited. Immediately after, he looked at the void in front of him that was intertwined with the power of laws, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. He suddenly stood up, and the ice crystal fragments above his head immediately turned into a giant sword that slashed at the void in front of him. However, when the giant sword slammed into the void, it was instantly swallowed by the power of laws, without setting off any waves. Even the supreme profound of the space-time law is useless? The young man in white looked at the void and muttered to himself. Suddenly, a woman's voice came from the intertwined power of laws. Child, Master has already said that this cage is not something you can break. It turned out that there was a cage in front of him. The young man in white said, Then how can this disciple break this cage and save Master? The voice pondered for a moment and then sighed. After so many years, I have no hope. No, this disciple will definitely save Master, even if I have to pay with my life. The young man in white clenched his hands, and there was a stubborn look in his eyes. Silly boy, you don't even know who I am, so why waste your time for me? Besides, aren't you afraid that I am a heinous person, and when you let me out, it will bring disaster to the sky cloud realm? The woman's voice was filled with relief and a trace of helplessness. Although this disciple has never seen Master, if it weren't for Master, I would have died here back then. Moreover, if it weren't for Master's guidance over the years, this disciple would probably still be degenerating, and I wouldn't have my current cultivation. Master has given this disciple a new lease of life. Therefore, whether Master is evil or good, I will save you. Besides, this disciple is not stupid. It is not difficult to judge that you are not an evil person from our usual interactions and conversations. The young man in white shook his head. Haha. The voice laughed and said, Don't think too much. Cultivate well, and I will teach you the mysteries of the law of destruction. Without waiting for the woman in the cage to finish speaking, the young man in white roared, Master, tell me first, what can I do to get you out of here? The voice fell silent again. After a long time, the woman's voice finally sounded. She sighed and said, If you want to get me out of here, even a sovereign divine weapon won't be able to do it. Only he. Who is it? The young man in white hurriedly asked. The person I once asked you to find, the woman said. The young man in white frowned. Suddenly, he quivered and asked, What about Qin Feiyang? Yes. The woman replied, Why is he the only one who can get you out of here? In terms of cultivation and strength, he is inferior to me. If I hadn't hidden my cultivation back then, he, Madman Emo, and the white-eyed wolf wouldn't have been my match. And his strongest weapon is the sovereign divine weapon. But you just said that the sovereign divine weapon can't break this cage. The young man in white raised his eyebrows. There are some things that I can't tell you yet. In short, in the current world, only this child can get me out of here, the woman said. Then I'll go find him right now. The young man in white said, Child, How can you just say the wind and rain? What's the use of finding him now? You have to wait for him to grow. You should work hard too. You are my disciple. You can't lose to him in the end. Besides, don't you still want to avenge your mother? Come help me after you've dealt with your own matters. The woman's voice was very gentle, with a hint of doting. Revenge. The young man in white clenched his fists and muttered with his head lowered. I've already comprehended the ultimate meaning of the law of space-time. I think I have the ability to take revenge now. Suddenly, he looked up at the cage in front of him and said, Master, I want to go back for a while. As long as you've thought it through, then go. The woman smiled. This disciple has thought it through. I don't want to delay any longer. This disciple has had enough of these years of suffering. The young man in white said word by word. His eyes flashed with a cold light. After he finished speaking, he turned around and took a step forward, quickly merging into the void and disappearing. Chapter 35-20. Western Continent. The Heavy Region. Qin Feiyang, the white-eyed wolf, and Yun Zhongtian stood above the entrance, scanning the endless black desert. They could see that there were many humans and beasts roaming around the periphery. The white-eyed wolf grinned, thinking about the last time we ambushed the Blood Dragon Prince here. It's really a pity. You ambushed the Blood Dragon Prince here? Yun Zhongtian was surprised. That's right. Originally, we could have gotten rid of him, but the other princes and princesses came too quickly, and with the Blood Dragon blade blocking us, we almost got rid of him. He was lucky. Under such circumstances, he could still preserve a wisp of his soul. The white-eyed wolf shook his head. Qin Feiyang said, It's more difficult to kill them now. Definitely. Now that they know our methods, they will also leave a wisp of their soul in the dragon's nest, just like the first prince. The white-eyed wolf nodded, but suddenly frowned, and turned to look at Qin Feiyang. Why don't we also leave a wisp of our soul in the black tortoise world? Makes sense. If we encounter any danger in the heavy region, at least we will have a chance in the future. Yun Zhongtian nodded in agreement. Qin Feiyang was silent when he heard this. What's wrong? Is there a problem? The white-eyed wolf was puzzled. There's no problem. However, if we leave a wisp of our soul in the black tortoise world, then we will have an indifferent attitude. When we encounter danger, we will not risk our lives like before. Because there are wisps of our soul in the black tortoise world anyway, why do we have to risk our lives? This kind of attitude will gradually weaken a person's fighting spirit. Once a person loses his fighting spirit, no matter how good his comprehension is, no matter how good his luck is, it will be useless. Qin Feiyang shook his head. That makes sense. Thinking back, when we faced danger, when did we not fight back desperately and kill our way out? It is because of this that we have improved so quickly. The white-eyed wolf nodded. That's right. A battle, especially a battle of life and death, is a tempering of one's battle consciousness and mentality. I've always believed that no matter if it's a human or any other creature, they can only unleash their full potential in a desperate situation. On the surface, there might not seem to be much of a difference, but everyone knows that a person who has been through life and death situations for many years is far stronger than others. Qin Feiyang said, Take people of the same level, for example. They had the same cultivation level, the same divine artifacts, and the same methods. However, people who had been through life and death situations were definitely stronger than others. Actually, leaving a divine soul behind in the black tortoise world doesn't have much of an impact. Although there's a soul left behind, we'll just pretend that it never happened. When we encounter danger, we'll still risk our lives like before. In short, there's no harm in leaving a way out. Yun Zhongtian said. Hearing that, the white-eyed wolf looked at Qin Feiyang and said, That makes sense. Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled. He looked at Yun Zhongtian and the white-eyed wolf and said, You can leave it behind, but don't try to persuade me otherwise. If I really leave a soul behind in the black tortoise world, how could I just ignore it? Subconsciously, I would definitely rely on it. After thinking about it, Qin Feiyang added, Besides, after so many years, I've never done that and I've still lived until now. As a person, we must have confidence in ourselves. All right. If you don't leave it behind, I will. I still want to live for a few more years. The white-eyed wolf waved its claws and a sliver of soul appeared, turning into a miniature golden wolf cub. Yun Zhongtian glanced at the white-eyed wolf and also decisively split a sliver of his soul. For someone as young as him, his life was more important than others. Brother Qin, just in case, you should leave a sliver of your soul behind as well. After all, the place we're going to now is not an ordinary forbidden land, but one of the 4 great forbidden lands, the heavy region. It's dangerous and unpredictable. Yun Zhongtian couldn't help but advise. Hearing that, Qin Feiyang looked up at the heavy region. Suddenly, the ancient castle's voice sounded in Qin Feiyang's mind. There's a need to remind you that splitting your soul is not a good thing. Qin Feiyang was slightly taken aback and quickly asked, "What do you mean?" Let me give you a simple example. For example, epiphany. The state of epiphany requires a complete soul to have a chance of entering it. In other words, if your soul is incomplete, no matter how good your luck is, you will never be able to enter the state of epiphany. In fact, you're right. People should never rely on others. Even if you deliberately want to forget, in your subconscious mind, you will always remember the matter of leaving your soul behind in advance. At that time, even if you try your best, you won't be able to achieve the same effect as before. The ancient castle said. Qin Feiyang pondered for a moment and said secretly, "Thank you for the reminder." In his heart, the castle was like a bright light, guiding him on the path forward. Since the ancient castle said so, then he definitely couldn't do it. Qin Feiyang retracted his gaze, and with a wave of his hand, he sent the white-eyed wolf and Yun Zhongtian's soul into the ancient castle's cultivation room. Because in the ancient castle, it was safer than anywhere else. Seeing that, Yun Zhongtian and the white-eyed wolf did not try to persuade him anymore. After all, everyone had their own choice and they couldn't force it. "Let's go." Qin Feiyang waved his hand and the 2 men and 1 wolf stepped into the heavy region. Look, aren't they Qin Feiyang and the golden-winged wolf king? With the appearance of the 2 men and 1 wolf, it immediately caused a big commotion. Now in the Sky Cloud realm, who didn't know them? Even if they hadn't seen them, they had heard of their names, especially in the Western continent. After the battle with the Blood Hall, the names of Qin Feiyang and the others were already known to everyone. It's really them. I heard that they went to the Een Demon Land last time and involved a mysterious force. I don't know if it's true or not. Now, they have come to the heavy region again. Could it be that there are some secrets hidden in this heavy region? And the old man next to him, why does he look so unfamiliar? No, I seem to have seen him somewhere. Really? Let me think. I think so. I remember. He's the old ancestor of the Yun family in the southern continent, the deputy temple master of the temple. What? It's actually the old ancestor of the Yun family. Why is he with Qin Feiyang? What's the situation? There doesn't seem to be any major news from the southern continent. Everyone was bewildered. Although Qin Feiyang and the others had caused a big disturbance in the southern continent, only the He family knew about it. The He family didn't publicize it wantonly. Therefore, the transfer of the Yun family had not spread to the eastern continent, western continent, northern continent, and even many people in the southern continent were kept in the dark. However, it was only a matter of time before this matter was exposed. At that time, it would inevitably cause another sensation in the Sky Cloud realm. Brother Qin, your prestige is not small now. Everyone knows you wherever you go. Yun Zhongtian chuckled. This may not be a good thing. Qin Feiyang shook his head and ignored the surrounding gazes. He walked to the Black Desert and scanned the surroundings. Gradually, he felt that there seemed to be a trace of gravity in the void. It was just like the ruins of the great Qin Empire. It was just that this gravity wasn't too obvious. Do you feel it? Yun Zhongtian asked, and Qin Feiyang nodded. This is the danger of the heavy region. The entire heavy region has a gravitational force. Although the gravitational force you feel isn't very obvious now, the deeper you go, the stronger the gravitational force. The last time I entered the heavy region, I was already a great perfection dominator and had comprehended the 5th profound of the law of destruction. Even so, I could only step into the central area of the central region and couldn't go any deeper. Yun Zhongtian said in a deep voice. Then with your current strength? The white-eyed wolf asked. I guess I can only reach the deepest part of the central region. I'm afraid I don't have the ability to step into the inner region. Yun Zhongtian guessed. Then let's give it a try. The white-eyed wolf laughed. This time was different from the Een Devil Land. In the Een Devil Land, it could absorb the Een Devil power and wouldn't be affected at all. But in the heavy region, it was the same as Qin Feiyang and would also be bound by the gravitational force. So it could be considered a challenge. Qin Feiyang pondered for a while and asked, Then has anyone studied this gravitational force, and where does it come from? There must be. It is said that there is a great possibility that this gravitational force is formed by the law of force, Yun Zhongtian said. Law of force? Qin Feiyang was slightly taken aback. Yes, but it could also be a divine weapon with the law of force, or the laws of the heavy region itself have the law of force. But no matter what the reason is, it must be related to the law of force. Yun Zhongtian said. Since it is related to the law of force, then will the people who have mastered the law of force be less affected? The white-eyed wolf asked. No. There was once an expert who had mastered the law of force that personally tested it, and the final conclusion was that even if you have mastered the law of force, it will not help you at all. The gravitational force is still as strong as it should be. Yun Zhongtian shook his head. Then, there is no other shortcut, and we can only step into the core area step by step? The white-eyed wolf frowned. That is the case for now, but for you, this old man is not sure. After all, you have too many miracles. Yun Zhongtian shook his head and smiled bitterly. Take the Een Devil Land, for example. When he learned that the white-eyed wolf and madman were able to absorb the Een Devil power, it was like a dream. What kind of monsters were they? Hey, interesting. The white-eyed wolf bared its teeth. Compared to the Een Devil Land, this was more challenging. Of course, this was only for it. For the creatures of the Sky Cloud realm, the Een Devil power of the Een Devil Land and the gravity of the heavy region were equally dangerous. Let's speed up. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. He was also filled with anticipation. Whoosh! Immediately, two people and a wolf, like a stream of light, galloped forward. There were many people around, and they were about to come up and chat with them. But when they saw the two people and a wolf disappear into the depths without looking back, they couldn't help but feel disappointed. However, this aroused their curiosity even more. They all wanted to know why Qin Feiyang came to the heavy region. Therefore, many people relied on their strength and couldn't help but follow. Chapter 35-21. In the blink of an eye, half a month had passed. Two people and one wolf successfully arrived at the central region. After all, their strength was displayed in front of them. Yun Zhongtian, a perfect dominator, grasped the supreme profound of destruction law. Qin Feiyang, a perfect dominator, grasped the two supreme profound of destruction law and karma law. The white-eyed wolf, needless to say, grasped the supreme profound of the four supreme laws. It was no exaggeration to say that even if a large group of perfect dominators came, it would not be enough to kill them. Therefore, in the entire peripheral region, there was no one who could threaten them. It was still a barren desert in front of them. Sand dunes rose and fell. Every grain of sand was black, revealing a strange atmosphere. Qin Feiyang, Yun Zhongtian, and the white-eyed wolf stopped outside the central region and scanned the front. Here, the gravity was very obvious, as if they were carrying tens of thousands of kilograms of stone on their backs. If they were mortals, they would have been destroyed under this pressure. But for Qin Feiyang and the others, tens of thousands of kilograms of stone was like a joke. They would not be affected at all. Still following? The white-eyed wolf looked back. At this moment, there were no less than thousands of people gathered behind them. There were also many ferocious beasts. The lowest cultivation was at the perfect imperishable realm, and the strongest was at the perfect dominator realm. In this half a month, the news that Qin Feiyang and the other two had entered the region had spread in the peripheral region. Although they could not use voice transmission God Stone here, there were many living beings in the peripheral region. One spread to 10, 10 spread to 100, and soon, it became an uproar. So basically, they came to join in the fun. Of course, They also wanted to see if they could go deep into the region through Qin Feiyang, Yun Zhongtian, and the White-Eyed Wolf and get some good fortune. Then, Lord Wolf, don't be angry. Just pretend that you didn't see us. Yes, 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 you do your thing. We will not disturb you. The people behind spoke one after another. In addition to respect, there were also compliments. The White-Eyed Wolf raised his eyebrows. The region is not our territory. They are free to do whatever they want. There is no need to be calculative. Qin Feiyang waved his hand. Brother Qin is the most reasonable one. Everyone smiled flatteringly. What do you mean? The White-Eyed Wolf frowned and said angrily, Are you hinting that I'm unreasonable? No, no. Everyone waved their hands. She muttered in her heart, Aren't you being unreasonable right now? He didn't even let others talk about it. Qin Feiyang turned his head to look at Yun Zhongtian and asked suspiciously, Old senior, why have we encountered so many other dangers along the way? Could it be that gravity is the only danger in this heavy region? Ugh! Yun Zhongtian was stunned. The thousands of humans and beasts behind him were also speechless. Qin Feiyang looked at everyone's reaction and wondered, Shouldn't I ask this question? Yun Zhongtian smiled bitterly and said, Brother Qin, to be honest, this question of yours is just a little infuriating. Infuriating? Qin Feiyang was taken aback. The forbidden zones don't have much danger to begin with. For example, the danger that exists in the Een Devil land is the power of the Een Devils. The danger of the heavy region is the gravity. But in fact, the greatest danger comes from ourselves. Humans and beasts entering the forbidden zones to search for treasures will naturally be greedy and lust, which will lead to fighting and killing. Yun Zhongtian smiled. Old Senior Yun is right. You didn't encounter any other dangers along the way because you are strong and no one dares to provoke you. But if it were others, they might have been ambushed by others as soon as they entered the border area. After all, killing and robbing is a common thing in the forbidden zones. For ordinary people, this is the greatest danger. So, Brother Qin, now you know how much of a shock your question is to us. Among the crowd behind, there were many people who had a wry smile on their faces. I'm sorry. Qin Feiyang smiled apologetically. He really didn't think about this. It did make sense. The dangers of the forbidden zones were without a doubt, but the greatest danger was still human nature. Greed and lust would make war everywhere. Such a good attitude? He's actually apologizing to us? Looking at the apologetic face of Qin Feiyang, thousands of humans and beasts were stunned. Wasn't the legendary Qin Feiyang cold, heartless, and tyrannical? But now, he didn't have the slightest domineering attitude. He was just like the boy next door, kind and approachable. It seemed that the rumors might not be true. Qin Feiyang once again looked forward and suddenly took a step forward, crossing the border and stepping into the central region. Boom! A powerful gravitational force suddenly pressed down like a tidal wave. Qin Feiyang was shocked. The gravity of this step was dozens of times different. Although he could still move freely, flying in the air was no longer possible. White-Eyed Wolf and Yun Zhongtian also stepped into the central region. Yun Zhongtian was already used to it, but White-Eyed Wolf was also shocked. The difference was a little beyond his imagination. White-Eyed Wolf scanned the void, his brows furrowed. The gravity of the central region is already so strong. I think the gravity of the inner region is enough to make it difficult for us to move. We must think of a way to resist this gravity. Qin Feiyang nodded and took a deep breath. Let's go first. We'll talk about it when we reach the inner region. Facing such an unknown place, even if you stayed here and racked your brains, you might not be able to think of a way to deal with it. So the best way was to take it one step at a time. Of course, this was also something that required confidence. If you did not have powerful strength to back you up, it was best not to take the risk. After all, if you really encountered danger and were unable to solve it, you would lose your life. The 3 men and 1 wolf stepped forward and continued to go deeper. Did you hear that? They're heading for the inner region. My ears are fine. Of course I heard it. Unbelievable. They're actually going to the inner region. It really proves the saying that the strong are bold. Then are we going to continue? The inner region is not something we can face. Not to mention the inner region. I don't even have the ability to reach the depths of the central region. Anyway, I'm going to take a look. Who knows, I might be able to benefit from it and enter the inner region to take a look. A portion of the people chose to continue to follow because of greed. Of course, there were also wise people who decisively chose to turn around and leave. Qin Feiyang noticed the movement behind him and stopped. He turned around and saw that almost half of the people and beasts had chosen to continue to follow. Although this is your freedom, but I sincerely advise you not to follow us anymore. Because the danger we're going to face next is something that even we do not know about. If you follow us, you may not be able to get anything in the end. Instead, it will be the same as the last time in the Enma land. All the people and beasts who followed us will lose their lives in the end. Qin Feiyang said in a low voice, "You've really been to the Enma land?" Hearing this, everyone stopped and looked at Qin Feiyang in bewilderment. That's right. Qin Feiyang nodded and then said, "If you have the confidence to face the battle of the sovereign divine weapons, then you can continue to follow us." What? Are you hinting that there will be a battle of the sovereign divine weapons in the future? Everyone was shocked. I don't know either, but it's possible. Qin Feiyang shook his head. The group of people lowered their heads in silence, their eyes filled with fear. If it was a normal battle, they would not be afraid. After all, those who dared to step into the central region had a certain level of strength and confidence. But a battle of the sovereign divine weapons, even if it was just the shockwaves, was not something they could withstand. That's all I have to say. Think about it yourselves. After Qin Feiyang said that, he turned back and led Yun Zhongtian and the white-eyed wolf deeper into the central region. Soon, they disappeared from the sight of the group. Forget it. I'd better not go. My life is more important. Since you've said so, I won't go either. If there really is a battle of the sovereign divine weapons, we won't even have time to escape. But what if they're just scaring us? Maybe they know that there's a treasure somewhere in the region and don't want us to get involved. That's why they don't want us to go? It can't be. What can't be? Haven't there been a lot of treasures in the region over the years? Then I won't go either. With Qin Feiyang and the others around, even if there's a treasure, do you think we have a share? At last, another half of the people turned around and left the central region. The remaining half of the people were basically hoping for a fluke. Qin Feiyang noticed this and did not say anything more. Anyway, he had already advised them. They were the ones who did not listen. Even if they died in there, they had only themselves to blame and no one else. As the days passed, the gravity became more and more terrifying. On the 10th day, the white-eyed wolf was so tired that he could not walk. His limbs were weak, and he felt like he was carrying a few mountains on his back. He could not even straighten his back. Can you do it? If not, I'll carry you. Qin Feiyang looked at the white-eyed wolf with disdain. Who said I can't do it? The white-eyed wolf was provoked. He gritted his teeth and continued to move forward. In fact, not to mention the white-eyed wolf, Qin Feiyang was also extremely tired. Fortunately, his cultivation level was higher than the white-eyed wolf's. Otherwise, he would definitely be in the same state as the white-eyed wolf. Even Yun Zhongtian was sweating profusely on his forehead. The white-eyed wolf asked breathlessly, "Little Yun, where are we now?" Little Yun? Yun Zhongtian was stunned. He turned to look at the white-eyed wolf and asked suspiciously, "Are you talking to me?" Nonsense. Besides little Qinzi, is there anyone else here? The white-eyed wolf glared at him. Yun Zhongtian was stunned. It calls the people around it that way. You'll get used to it. Qin Feiyang smiled. All right then. Yun Zhongtian smiled helplessly as he looked around and said, "We should be about a tenth of the way there." What's that? The white-eyed wolf froze in place. 10 whole days and only a tenth of the way there? Wouldn't it take another 90 days to reach the inner reaches? You can't calculate it like that. Because as we get closer, the gravity will become stronger and our speed will naturally become slower and slower. So the rest of the journey will take at least 2 to 3 years. Because the last time I reached the inner reaches, it took me an entire 3 years. Actually, the distance in a straight line is not that far, but the gravity is just too terrifying, making it difficult for us to move an inch. Yun Zhongtian explained as he sighed deeply. Both of his legs were already aching unbearably. Chapter 35:22. 2 to 3 years? Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf looked at each other. This was too exaggerated. One must know. This wasn't outside. If it was outside, 2 to 3 years would pass in the blink of an eye. But here, the gravity was everywhere and would continue to rise. Staying in such an environment for 2 to 3 years was equivalent to suffering every day. Who could bear it? Although it's a little painful and boring, it's also a kind of training for the mind. Yun Zhongtian smiled. That's true. Qin Feiyang nodded. My mind is already 1 in a million. I don't need such training. The white-eyed wolf pursed his lips. When Qin Feiyang and Yun Zhongtian heard this, they couldn't help but roll their eyes. Looking at the people behind them, most of them were already lying down and had no choice but to turn around and return. Only 12 people continued to follow. Without exception, they were all sovereigns, but the exhaustion on their faces couldn't be concealed. Brother Qin, Wolf King, the two of you are amazing. The 12 people walked over with difficulty and looked at Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf in admiration. Don't laugh at me. The white-eyed wolf snorted coldly. In all honesty, I'm not laughing at you. Take a look at the people who were following us earlier. Even the perfect Dominator realm cultivators and ferocious beasts were unable to withstand our attacks and were forced to retreat one after another. On the other hand, you are only a great accomplishment Dominator, yet you were able to persist until now. A black-bearded old man laughed hoarsely. Of course. If I didn't have some ability, would I dare to step into this heavy region? The white-eyed wolf smiled proudly. Yes, yes, yes. The black-bearded old man nodded and looked at Qin Feiyang with a smile. Brother Qin, why don't we travel together? We can take care of each other. Didn't I tell you not to follow? Qin Feiyang frowned. The black-bearded old man hurriedly said, We are not following you. We have long wanted to go deeper to take a look, but we have never had the courage. Now that we have seen Brother Qin, we have inexplicably gained some courage. Ugh. Qin Feiyang looked at the black-bearded old man in astonishment. His ability to flatter others was really top-notch. All right, as long as you don't regret it. Furthermore, you all have also seen it. Even I am powerless to protect myself. At that time, I will definitely not be able to help you all should we encounter danger. Qin Feiyang said. No regrets, no regrets. We don't need your help. On the contrary, we will help you. The 12 of them were overjoyed. They had finally merged into this small team. Qin Feiyang felt helpless. Why was she so stubborn? The black-bearded old man shouted, Brothers, help Brother Wolf King. All right. 2 middle-aged men stepped forward and supported the white-eyed wolf as they continued to walk deeper into the forest. I even need someone to help me walk. How embarrassing. The white-eyed wolf was furious. Qin Feiyang shook his head and laughed. For the white-eyed wolf, it was indeed quite frustrating. In the blink of an eye, another 10 days passed. The terrifying gravity shrouded the entire world, not giving Qin Feiyang and the others any chance to breathe. Even Qin Feiyang had reached his limit. His feet seemed to be stuck in a quagmire, and it was difficult for him to move. Brother Qin, let us help you. 2 middle-aged men stepped forward. No need. You guys are also working hard. Qin Feiyang waved his hand. We can still hold on. The 2 middle-aged men said nothing and supported Qin Feiyang on each side as they continued to move forward. Huh. You also need someone to help you? The white-eyed wolf looked at Qin Feiyang playfully. Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes. Looking at the black desert in front of him, he couldn't help but reveal a trace of fear in his eyes. The danger of the heavy region was far beyond his imagination. In such a situation, if a ferocious beast or a supreme expert who had grasped the ultimate profoundness were to appear and block their path, they would be in deep trouble. It had been more than a month since they entered the heavy region. Outside, the eastern continent, western continent, northern continent, and southern continent didn't fall into peace. Just as Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf expected, the news of the Yun family's departure slowly spread across the continents, causing a huge uproar. They didn't expect that the dignified second family of the southern continent would actually submit to Qin Feiyang. They were even more afraid of Qin Feiyang. First, the Blood Hall submitted to him, and now the Yun family submitted to him. Now, Qin Feiyang's strength was getting more and more terrifying. Of course, when the Demonic Hall and the Rogue Cultivator Alliance received the news, they were naturally secretly delighted. Because the stronger Qin Feiyang was, the better it would be for them. After all, whether it was the Demonic Hall or the Rogue Cultivator Alliance, they were all grasshoppers on the same rope as Qin Feiyang. They were bound together for good or ill. Also on this morning, Cloud Han City. A young man in a white robe appeared outside Cloud Han City. He looked at Cloud Han City in front of him without moving, and there was an extremely complicated expression on his face. Anger, murderous intent, grief, longing. There was even a layer of mist in her eyes. "I'm back," after a long time. The young man in white finally took a step forward and walked towards the city gate of Cloud Han City. "I really don't understand why the Yun family would do such a thing." Yeah, how surprising. There were many people coming and going in groups of 2s and 3s as they whispered to each other. When the young man in white heard that, he frowned slightly and looked at the passers-by with a hint of suspicion in his eyes. "I say, did the Yun family receive some benefits from Qin Feiyang? Aren't they afraid of being laughed at?" Another 2 burly men walked over and kept talking. "Qin Feiyang?" The young man in white raised his eyebrows and took a step forward to stand in front of the 2 burly men. The 2 burly men were stunned. They looked up at the young man in white and asked, "What are you doing?" The young man in white cupped his hands and said, "Brothers, what do you mean by the Yun family and Qin Feiyang? Don't you know?" The 2 burly men were stunned. "I just came out of the forbidden area." The young man in white smiled. "I see." The 2 burly men nodded and sighed. "You don't know. More than a month ago, the Yun family suddenly migrated. Not a single one of them was left behind. They all ran away with Qin Feiyang." "Migrated?" The smile on the young man in white's face disappeared immediately. "That's right. We don't know what's going on either. However, we heard from the He family that the Yun family and Qin Feiyang are in cahoots and have betrayed the southern continent." The 2 burly men said, "Nonsense. How could the Yun family betray the southern continent?" The young man in white shouted immediately, his face full of anger. "It's not us who said it. It's the He family who said it." The 2 burly men glared at the young man in white and turned to leave. "Qin Feiyang," the young man in white muttered. He clenched his fists and walked toward the city gate with a gloomy face. One of the 2 burly men who had walked a distance suddenly stopped and turned to look at the back of the young man in white. "What's wrong?" His companion looked at him suspiciously. "Why do I feel that this person looks familiar?" The burly man muttered. "Familiar?" His companion looked at the young man in white again and shook his head. "I don't think he looks familiar. That's probably an illusion." The burly man smiled. The 2 burly men turned back and continued to talk about the Yun family as they walked toward the mountains. The young man in white. He lowered his head and remained silent along the way. His ears were filled with the discussion between the Yun family and Qin Feiyang. Why did it become like this? The young man in white muttered. When he reached the city gate, he realized that the guards at the city gate were also from the He family. His eyes flashed coldly. Boom! A terrifying aura exploded. The young man in white landed in front of the guards at the city gate. He grabbed one of the guards by the neck and shouted, "Who's living in the inner city now? Who are you? How dare you behave atrociously in the He family's territory?" The sudden change made the 4 guards a little confused. When they came back to their senses, they immediately shouted at the young man in white. The people entering and leaving the city also stopped and looked at the young man in white suspiciously. "This person is crazy. How dare he cause trouble in Cloud Han City? Answer my question. Who's living in the inner city now?" The young man in white said word by word. His eyes were extremely cold. The 4 guards couldn't help but show fear, especially the guard whose neck was grabbed by the young man in white. He replied fearfully, "It's Lord He Changjian." "He Changjian." The young man in white lowered his head and seemed to be lost in his memories. Suddenly, his eyes flashed coldly and he said in a deep voice, He's He Qinggong's third brother, He Qingjian? That's right. The guard nodded. Preposterous. Is the land of my Yun family something that He Qingjian can touch? The young man in white shouted and crushed the guard's neck. He soared into the sky like a ray of divine light and went straight to the inner city at the center of the city. Brother, are you okay? The other 3 guards hurriedly ran to the guard and asked with concern. The guard shouted, It's just a broken neck. He's not dead yet. Quickly inform Lord He Chengjian that a remnant of the Yun family has appeared. The other 3 guards nodded and immediately took out a voice transmission divine stone. Inner city. Inside a large hall, a middle-aged man was sitting on a throne with a teacup in his hand. There were 2 young women in front and behind him. One was massaging his legs and the other was massaging his shoulders. It was extremely comfortable. This is the Yun family's territory. It's quite comfortable to live in. The middle-aged man laughed as he drank tea. Comfortable? Why didn't we notice? It doesn't feel any different from 7-Star City. The 2 women giggled when they heard that. Both of you don't understand. Even though the Yun family was inferior to our He family in the past, it's still a sworn enemy of our He family no matter what. In the past, the Yun family wouldn't even allow us to enter Cloudhan City, let alone step foot into the inner city and drink tea in their territory. So, I feel especially accomplished and satisfied now. The middle-aged man smiled. Right. The 2 women thought seriously for a moment and nodded. My lord. Suddenly, a loud shout resounded from outside, and then a middle-aged man in armor ran in hastily. The middle-aged man gazed at the man and spoke angrily. You're the commander of the guards of the city at any rate. Why are you so impatient? Not to mention that the entire southern continent belongs to my He family now. What's there to make you so anxious? End of this chapter. Chapter 35-23. Sir, please forgive us. However, there's indeed a major matter. There are still remnants of the Yun family in the southern continent, the guard commander said in a deep voice. Remnants? He Chengjian frowned. That's right. This person is charging towards the inner city and even injured one of our guards. The guard commander nodded. Preposterous. He actually dares to injure a guard of our He family? He's simply courting death. Let's go. Let's go out and see who's so daring. He Chengjian put down his teacup and walked out of the hall. The guard commander and the 2 women followed closely behind. Boom. Just as the 4 of them walked out of the main hall, a terrifying aura descended upon the sky above the inner city without any concealment. It was the young man in white. He really charged into the inner city? He Chengjian was stunned. He raised his head and sized up the young man in white. His eyes flickered with a cold light. At the same time, the other people in the inner city also walked out and looked at the young man in white with a trace of killing intent on their faces. The young man in white also scanned the inner city below. Looking at the unfamiliar faces, the killing intent emitted from his body became more and more terrifying. Who's there? How dare you behave atrociously in our He family's territory? Accompanied by a furious roar, a group of guards soared into the air and stared at the young man in white. He family's territory, the young man in white murmured. He suddenly looked at the group of guards. His gaze was as sharp as a blade, and the group of guards couldn't help but tremble. An unsuppressible fear emerged in their hearts. Just a gaze was enough to make them feel so terrified. Just what cultivation was this person at? Who gave you the courage to say that the Yun family's territory is your He family's territory? The young man in white took a step forward, and his aura surged like a torrent. With a buzz, a giant barrier appeared in the sky above the inner city. This was the protective barrier of the inner city. The young man in white sneered and pointed at the sky. A burst of space-time energy blasted towards the giant barrier like a storm. Accompanied by a loud bang, the barrier shattered on the spot. What? This barrier was personally set up by Lord He Chengjian. The people in the inner city were extremely shocked. The enchantment here had originally been set up by Yun Zhongtian, but before he left, Yun Zhongtian had removed the enchantment. Hence, when He Chengjian was stationed in the Cloud Han City, he had personally set up another enchantment. He Chengjian was also a paragon sovereign. Although he hadn't comprehended the ultimate profundity, with his status and position, no one dared to cause trouble. This is space-time energy. Retreat. At the same time that the barrier shattered, the group of guards' faces changed and they hurriedly retreated. However, the white-clothed youth did not intend to let them go. The space-time energy was like a tide, covering the sky and covering the earth, instantly drowning the group of He clan guards. Ah! Screams immediately resounded in all directions. The group of guards, without exception, had their blood splattered across the sky. So strong. The guard commander's pupils shrank. Even though these guards weren't strong, they were still half-step sovereigns. Yet, they were killed just like that. He Chengjian stared at the white-robed young man, his fists clenched tightly and his gaze dark. Not only did he brazenly shatter the enchantment he had set up, but he also killed the He clan guards in front of him. He didn't take him seriously at all. Go, kill him. He Chengjian looked at the guard commander and shouted. The guard commander panicked and said, My lord, he has grasped the space-time laws. How can I be his match? This guard commander was also a paragon sovereign, but he hadn't grasped the ultimate profundity, so he didn't have any confidence in facing the white-clothed youth. Useless trash. If you don't go, do you want me to do it myself? He Chengjian said angrily. I don't dare. The guard commander hurriedly shook his head and could only bite the bullet and fly up. He looked at the white-clothed youth and said in a deep voice, No matter who you are, I have to advise you to scram immediately. The ones who should scram are all of you. The white-clothed youth's killing intent surged. He took a step forward and instantly landed in front of the guard commander. Such fast speed. This is a supreme-grade, heaven-defying auxiliary divine technique. The guard commander's face changed as he quickly raised his hand to counterattack. Humph! The white-clothed youth sneered and slapped his palm. The space-time energy surged, and the guard commander immediately screamed. His arm was torn open, and his flesh and blood splattered everywhere. You're courting death. This made the guard commander furious. A set of armor suddenly appeared on his body, and a long spear appeared in his hand. These were both supreme-grade, heaven-defying divine artifacts. The long spear was as black as ink and had a cold luster. The guard commander grabbed the long spear, and like a flash of light, he went straight for the white-clothed youth's glabella. The white-clothed youth looked at the long spear with disdain. He grabbed at the void, and the void in front of him collapsed, turning into pieces of ice crystals that flashed with dazzling divine light. This is space-time laws, the ultimate profundity. The guard commander was dumbfounded. That's right. This was the ultimate profundity. Who was this person? He actually grasped the ultimate profundity of the ultimate profundity. He had never heard of such a person in the Yun clan before. When he came back to his senses, he immediately turned around and ran. The white-clothed youth sneered. The ice crystals that filled the sky turned into a giant hand that covered the sky. It grabbed the guard commander and clenched his fist. With a shrill scream, the guard commander died on the spot. Space-time laws, the ultimate profundity. He Chengjian's eyes were filled with shock. One must know, there were hundreds of thousands of people in the He clan, but only the old ancestor had grasped the ultimate profundity of the ultimate profundity. This person, who looked so young, actually had such strength. The most important thing was that he had never seen this person in the He clan before. No, that look, it seems a little familiar. Suddenly, He Chengjian looked at the white-clothed youth's eyes, his face full of surprise. At the same time, the other people in the He clan in the inner city also stared at the white-clothed youth in shock. At such a young age, he had grasped the ultimate profundity of the space-time laws. Could it be that he wasn't Qin Feiyang's companion? Because in the younger generation of the Sky Cloud realm, only the people around Qin Feiyang could possibly grasp the ultimate profundity of the ultimate profundity. But that wasn't right. This person clearly claimed to be from the Yun clan. The white-clothed youth looked down at He Chengjian and sneered. He Chengjian, you really don't remember me? And? He Chengjian was surprised. Who the hell was he? This look, the white-clothed youth took a step forward and walked towards He Chengjian step by step. His long black hair fluttered behind him, and his clothes fluttered in the wind. He was like a god descending. Wait. Suddenly, a young man appeared in He Chengjian's mind. This young man, 14 or 15 years old, was wearing a brocade robe, gentle and elegant, bright and handsome. When the eyes of this young man coincided with the eyes of the white-clothed youth in front of him, He Chengjian felt as if he was struck by lightning. He Chengjian raised his head and looked at the white-clothed youth. His face was full of disbelief as he roared, "You are Yun Zitao." "No. Yun Zitao is dead, and now the one who is alive in this world, vowing to avenge his mother, is Yun Ziang," the white-clothed youth said, his eyes as cold as death. That's right. This person was Yun Ziang, who had been missing for a long time. Yun Ziang, Yun Zitao, you're not dead. He Chengjian's eyes trembled. That's right. I'm not dead. I'm here to take your He family's life. The white-robed young man laughed sinisterly. The surrounding space collapsed and turned into ice fragments that surged from all directions. They gathered together and gradually condensed into a heaven-splitting divine sword. He Chengjian's body and mind trembled as he turned and fled. The other He family members were the same, their faces full of fear. "Who is Yun Zitao?" someone asked his companion while running for his life. Yun Zitao is the eldest son of Yun Guangwei. To get to the bottom of this matter, we have to start from many years ago. But before he could finish speaking, the heaven-splitting divine sword slashed down, its sharp edge sweeping in all directions. The entire inner city was instantly reduced to ashes with a loud bang. A large number of the He family members in the inner city were killed or injured. He Chengjian was also covered in wounds, his face full of fear. "Go." Suddenly, an old man rushed to He Chengjian's side, his entire body dripping with blood. He grabbed He Chengjian and flew away without looking back. Despair. Tremble. Yun Ziang laughed, and the heaven-splitting divine sword once again slashed down on the inner city below. Except for the old man and He Chengjian, everyone was killed. What happened in the inner city? What a terrifying fluctuation. Not good. The fluctuation is spreading out. Everyone, run. The people in the 4 major districts of Yunnan City were frantically running for their lives. Buildings were constantly collapsing, like a scene of doomsday. When Yun Ziang saw this, he waved his hand, and the space-time power surged in all directions, condensing a huge boundary, sealing the battle fluctuations in the inner city. Although his killing intent was aroused at this moment, he still maintained his rationality, not wanting to hurt innocent people. When the old man saw this, he roared, "Quickly send a message to the family head." He Chengjian immediately took out the voice transmission divine stone. Buzz. A shadow appeared. This was also a middle-aged man, somewhat similar to He Chengjian and He Chenggang. This person was He Chengqiang. He Chenggang had died, and He Chengqiang had inherited the position of the family head. "Third brother, what's the situation?" Looking at He Chengjian and the old man's miserable appearance, He Chengqiang's expression changed, and he hurriedly asked, "Second brother, Yun Zitao is still alive," He Chengjian roared. However, before he finished speaking, Yun Ziang appeared behind the old man and He Chengjian. In an instant, the space-time power surged, and He Chengjian and the old man screamed on the spot, their blood staining the sky. "Second brother," He Chengqiang roared, and the shadow quickly dissipated. "He Chengqiang, He Zhongtian, don't worry, it will be your turn soon," Yun Ziang murmured, stepped into the sky, and stood on the boundary. He glanced at the shattered inner city, then turned and left without looking back. The shock waves of the battle were sealed in the inner city, and the people in the 4 districts didn't escape anymore. Those who were a little braver gradually approached the inner city, and when they saw the raised inner city through the enchantment, they were immediately stunned. Who on earth was this young man? He actually destroyed the entire inner city in one fell swoop, killing everyone in the He family. Because of the boundary, the people in the 4 major districts did not hear He Chengjian's roar. Everyone was guessing if this young man in white was Qin Feiyang's companion. Chapter 35-24. 7-Star City. Yun Zitao. A middle-aged man stood in a large hall, his face full of disbelief. This person was He Chengqiang. How was this possible? Didn't Yun Zitao already die back then? Why was he still alive? Even if he was still alive, he couldn't be so strong. One had to know. He Chengjian wasn't the only one guarding Cloud Han City. There were many Dominator Realm clansmen. With so many people, they couldn't take down Yun Zitao? It seemed like he couldn't be careless. Swoosh! He Chengqiang turned into a stream of light and rushed out of the hall, heading straight for the back mountain. Very soon, a courtyard appeared in his line of sight. He Chengqiang landed in front of the courtyard and looked at the wooden building inside. Old ancestor, I have an urgent matter to report to you. He Zhongtian walked out of the wooden building. Although more than a month had passed, he hadn't reconstructed his physical body because the He family's time array only lasted 500 years and a day. 1 month was more than 30 days, which was only about 10,000 years. For a perfected dominator, it was impossible to reconstruct their physical body in 10,000 years. What's wrong? He Zhongtian looked at He Chengqiang suspiciously. He Chengqiang said in a deep voice, just now, third brother sent a message saying that Yun Zitao appeared in Cloud Han City. Yun Zitao? He Zhongtian was stunned. He Chengqiang said, Yun Guanghui's eldest son. Isn't he dead? He Zhongtian was surprised. Yes. But now, he has indeed appeared in Cloud Han City. Third brother has already been killed by him. He Chengqiang said angrily. What? He Zhongtian's eyes widened in anger. When third brother sent a message to me, I saw him appear behind third brother and use the space-time law to kill third brother. He Chengqiang clenched his fists, his eyes filled with anger. Space-time law? Yun Zitao, He Zhongtian muttered. How could this be? A person who had been dead for many years had appeared again, and his strength was so strong. To be able to kill He Chengjian and all the He family clansmen in Cloud Han City, his cultivation had definitely reached the perfected Dominator realm. Boom! Suddenly, in the sky, a spatial crack appeared, accompanied by a monstrous killing intent. A blood-stained white-robed youth walked out. It was Yun Ziang. The blood on his body naturally did not belong to him. It belonged to He Chengqiang and the old man. He Zhongtian and He Chengqiang immediately raised their heads to take a look, and their pupils instantly shrank. This person's cultivation was indeed at the peak sovereign realm. Looking at Yun Ziang's eyes, it was exactly the same as the Yun Zitao they remembered. He Zhongtian, He Chengqiang, come out and die. Yun Ziang stood in the air, sweeping his gaze over the He clan's land as he shouted, Who is it? How dare you come to my He family to cause trouble? A group of guards rushed into the sky and glared at Yun Ziang. How dare you kill someone from the He clan? Yun Ziang smiled coldly. He raised his hand and slapped the air. The void immediately collapsed, turning into a torrent of ice crystals that blasted downward. A protective barrier appeared, emanating the power of death. The barrier was created by He Zhongtian using the law of death. Boom! Faced with the bombardment of the ice crystal torrent, the barrier immediately distorted. This is, He Zhongtian and He Chengqiang's pupils shrank. It was actually the supreme power of the law of space and time. The group of guards standing below the barrier was also shocked. They did not expect this young man to be a supreme power. Even a barrier formed by the power of death can't stop me. Yun Ziang roared angrily. All sorts of law of death appeared, and together with the torrent of ice crystals, they blasted toward the barrier. Crack! A crack appeared on the barrier. He Zhongtian's expression changed. He leaped out of the barrier and landed in front of Yun Ziang. He said in a low voice, Yun Ziang, I don't know what you've experienced over the years to make you so strong, but I advise you to leave immediately. I am no longer Yun Ziang. I am Yun Ziang, the Yun Ziang who wants to avenge my mother. Yun Ziang smiled coldly and sent a palm strike toward He Zhongtian. He Zhongtian's expression changed, and he hurriedly retreated back into the barrier. Although he was also a supreme power who had grasped the supreme power, he did not dare to fight with Yun Ziang without a physical body. So you've lost your physical body? This is really retribution. However, I will not show mercy because of this. Yun Ziang's gaze was extremely cold. All sorts of law of death once again blasted at the barrier, and a crack appeared. You don't know the current situation at all. If you don't leave now, even a god won't be able to save you. He Zhongtian shouted. You should worry about yourself first. Yun Ziang smiled coldly. However, before Yun Ziang finished speaking, a murderous voice sounded from a courtyard at the back of the mountain. Who has the guts to come and disturb our cultivation? Yun Ziang lowered his head, and his eyes flashed with an intense cold light. I'm doing this for your own good. We can slowly resolve our grudges in the future. Leave now. He Zhongtian was extremely anxious. He actually did not want to let Yun Ziang go. However, he had no choice. The Yun family was now following Qin Feiyang. Even if he did not give the Yun family face, he had to give Qin Feiyang face. Qin Feiyang's anger was not something that he could bear. When Yun Ziang heard this, he furrowed his brows. What was going on? Although the situation in the southern mainland had changed drastically, not many people knew that the dragons were hiding in the He family. Yun Ziang did not know either. Blood Dragon Blade, kill him? The voice sounded again. It was the Blood Dragon Prince. With a loud clang, the Blood Dragon Blade flew out of the courtyard and into the sky at lightning speed. That's a Dominator Divine Weapon. Yun Ziang's eyes narrowed, and he immediately opened a space-time teleportation channel. He Zhongtian transmitted his voice, Blood Dragon Blade, have mercy. He is the eldest son of Yun Guangwei. He used to be called Yun Zitao, but now he is called Yun Ziang. He might be related to Qin Feiyang. Hearing this, the Blood Dragon Blade hesitated. If he was related to Qin Feiyang, then he really could not kill him. Just as the Blood Dragon Blade was hesitating, Yun Ziang flew into the space-time teleportation channel and quickly disappeared. You run fast. The Blood Dragon Blade pretended to snort coldly and turned into a stream of light, disappearing from the courtyard below. What's going on? He Zhongtian frowned. Back then, he was still a little kid who was still wet behind the ears. Now, he had grown to this extent. That was too fast. He Chengqiang flew to He Zhongtian's side and said with a frown, Old ancestor, this is a powerful enemy. Should we send someone to chase after him? He Zhongtian glanced at He Chengqiang and said angrily, Can you use your brain? Yun Zhongtian took the Dominator Divine Weapon and my physical body has not been reconstructed. How are you going to chase after him? He Chengqiang's expression stiffened as he muttered. Then we don't care about the death of third brother and the clansman? He Zhongtian said in a deep voice, Wait until I reconstruct my physical body. Tell all the clansmen to be obedient during this period of time. Yes. He Chengqiang nodded. Southern continent. In the sky above a deep mountain, Yun Ziang stood against the wind, his head lowered and his brows furrowed. How could the He family have a Dominator Divine Weapon? Moreover, looking at He Zhongtian's attitude before, it seemed that he was deliberately hinting at him. That didn't make sense. He Zhongtian's reaction when he saw him, shouldn't it be to eliminate the roots? Why was he hinting at him? What had happened in the Sky Cloud realm all these years? Suddenly, he took out the sound transmission godstone. Not long after, a beautiful woman appeared. It was Yueqing. Big brother Yun. Yueqing looked at Yun Ziang with an excited expression. How have you been these years? Yun Ziang smiled slightly. He was like a different person from before. He was elegant, refined, and amiable. Pretty good. Yueqing nodded and asked with concern, What about you? Where are you now? Where have you been all these years? Every time Miao Miao and I sent you a message, you didn't respond to us. I'm cultivating in seclusion. Yun Ziang said vaguely and said with a smile, Where are you now? I'll go and see you. I'm in the western continent. I'll give you the coordinates. Come over. Yueqing smiled slightly, as if she had seen a relative. Western continent. A huge city, like an ancient giant beast, stood on the ground. In one part of the city, there was a bustling restaurant. This was the Tianyue building. It was also the headquarters of the Tianyue building in the western continent. Underground, in a secret room, Yueqing and Yun Ziang sat opposite each other. On the tea table in the middle, there was a pot of fragrant tea. Big brother Yun, you don't know how worried we were about you all these years. You're really, even if you're cultivating in seclusion, you should let us know that you're safe. Yueqing said as she looked at Yun Ziang unhappily while brewing tea. I'm sorry. I neglected it. I sincerely apologize to you. Yun Ziang roared. All right, I'll forgive you since your attitude is all right. Yueqing smiled gently and poured a cup of tea. She handed it to Yun Ziang and asked, Where have you been cultivating in seclusion all these years? I think your cultivation is a little unfathomable. Of course, I have to choose a quiet place to cultivate in seclusion. Yun Ziang chuckled. As for his cultivation, he hid it again. It seemed to be between the imperishable realm and the dominator realm. It seemed. He didn't want to dwell on the issue of cultivation. He looked around and asked, Where's Miao Miao? She's in the Eastern Continent. She's in charge of the Tianyue building in the Eastern Continent. I'm in charge of the Tianyue building in the Western Continent. Yueqing smiled. I see. Yun Ziang nodded in realization and said with a smile, I really didn't expect the Tianyue Tower to develop so quickly. Now, the Tianyue Tower in the Eastern and Western continents can be considered a force that cannot be ignored. It's all thanks to Qin Dage. If it weren't for his help, we wouldn't be where we are today. Yueqing shook her head. Is that so? It seems that Qin Feiyang is really capable. Yun Ziang smiled. That's for sure. A lot of things have happened these years. The structure of the Sky Cloud realm has also changed a lot, but without exception, almost all of them have something to do with Qin Dage. Yueqing smiled and said with respect, What about Qin Feiyang now? Yun Ziang asked. I don't know. Qin Dage comes and goes without a trace. No one knows where he is. Yueqing smiled wryly. Yun Ziang shook his head and said with a smile, I happen to have something to ask him. Can you help me contact him? Of course. Yueqing nodded and immediately took out the divine voice transmitting stone. Chapter 35-25. Looking at the divine voice stone in Yueqing's hand, Yun Ziang's eyes flickered. However, after waiting for a while, there was no response from Qin Feiyang. Yueqing could not help but smile bitterly. She looked at Yun Ziang and said, It seems that we can't contact him. Why can't we contact him? Yun Ziang was suspicious. I'm used to it. Because it's not just you. Qin Feiyang is the same. Unless he appears on his own initiative, it's very difficult to contact him. Yueqing smiled helplessly. Yun Ziang could not help but smile bitterly. Have you heard about the Yun family in the southern continent? Yes. Now, everyone in the 4 continents is talking about it. Yueqing nodded. Yun Ziang asked, Then do you know why the Yun family left with Qin Feiyang? I really don't know. Qin Dage won't tell me what he does. However, according to my personal guess, it should be related to the dragons. Yueqing said, Dragons? Yun Ziang was stunned. Yes. You don't know, but a mysterious force has appeared recently. This force is the dragons. The dragons are very powerful. Even the Demon Hall and the Itinerant Cultivator Alliance have to bow to them. And this dragon seems to have a deep hatred for Qin Dage. They have been fighting for a long time, but I heard that Qin Dage has the upper hand every time. Yueqing smiled. Are they that strong? Yun Ziang was surprised. Even the Demon Hall and the Itinerant Cultivator Alliance had to bow to them. This was too ridiculous. Yes. Not to mention the Demon Hall and the Itinerant Cultivator Alliance. Even Qin Feiyang is extremely wary of this dragons. He even warned me to never let the dragons know that I'm related to him in the future. Otherwise, it would bring disaster upon me. Big brother Yun, you're not an outsider, so I don't need to guard against you. However, you must keep this a secret and don't provoke the dragons. I heard from Qin Dage that these dragons' princesses and princes all have sovereign divine weapons. Yueqing said in a deep voice. Everyone will have a sovereign weapon. Yun Ziang was shocked. If that was the case, then the Dominator Divine Weapon that appeared in the He clan was most likely the Dominator Divine Weapon of the dragons. What kind of power was this? How could it be so terrifying? Yueqing spoke in a low voice. I won't hide it from you. The Rogue Cultivator Alliance already has a princess of the dragons. Yun Ziang was shocked and asked, What is she doing in the Rogue Cultivator Alliance? I don't know either. In any case, I can't afford to offend him. A while ago, I was even brought in for questioning. They asked me what my relationship with Qingdage was. Fortunately, the alliance leader and the others helped me deal with it. Otherwise, you might not even be able to see me. Yueqing shook her head. Then it seems that Qin Feiyang is avoiding the pursuit of the dragons. Yun Xiang guessed. It should be. Although Qingdage has the upper hand every time they fight, the gap is still right in front of them. If they fight head-on, Qingdage is definitely not their match. Yueqing nodded, but she believed that sooner or later, the dragons would be completely defeated by Qin Feiyang. Yun family, dragons, Qin Feiyang. Yun Xiang pondered. From the current situation, the Yun family should have taken the initiative to follow Qin Feiyang in order to protect themselves. In other words, the He family now had the support of the dragons. However, He Zhongtian's attitude left him perplexed. They were supposed to be life and death enemies, but he was secretly helping him. If there was nothing wrong with He Zhongtian's head, there must be a secret hidden behind this. Yueqing took a sip of tea and looked at Yun Xiang. Brother Yun, you're not leaving again this time, right? Yes. Yun Xiang nodded. You're leaving again? Yu Qing immediately pouted, her expression filled with displeasure. Yes. I just came back to see you and ask Qin Feiyang some questions. But now that Qin Feiyang has disappeared, there's no need for me to stay any longer. Yun Xiang smiled. Why are all of you so busy? Yueqing said unhappily. He's a man. His ambition is to travel far. Yun Xiang chuckled and asked, Do you know where Qin Feiyang might be now? Yueqing pondered for a while, and her eyes suddenly lit up. She looked at Yun Xiang and said, He might have gone to the 4 forbidden areas, but I'm not sure if he went there or which forbidden area he went to. The 4 forbidden areas. Yun Xiang lowered his head and pondered. Buzz. Suddenly, the divine sound transmission stone rang. Yueqing took out the divine sound transmission stone, and a middle-aged fatso appeared. Looking at the middle-aged fatso, Yueqing immediately stood up and bowed. Greetings, Senior Wang Dafu. That's right. This person was the housemaster of the rich and noble house, who was also the sworn brother of the deputy leader, Wang Dafu. Xiao Qing, how have you been? Wang Dafu chuckled. Pretty good. Yueqing nodded. After the destruction of the Blood Hall, Wang Dafu did not enter the Rogue Cultivator Alliance, but continued to stay in the rich and noble house. Although it was also a restaurant like the Tianyue house, there was no conflict between the two. Not only was there no conflict, Wang Dafu also admired Yueqing and felt that she was very business-minded. He took care of her as if she was his junior. The reason why the Tianyue house was able to stabilize in the Western continent so quickly was because of Wang Dafu's care. Have you received the news? Wang Dafu asked. What news? Yueqing was suspicious. News about Qin Feiyang. Wang Dafu said. Yun Xiang, who was sitting opposite, immediately looked up at Wang Dafu. But Wang Dafu did not notice him. Yueqing was also slightly taken aback and asked, What news? Wang Dafu said, Just now when I was in the rich and noble house, I heard that a few guests were discussing that Qin Feiyang, Yun Zhongtian, and White-Eyed Wolf had gone to the heavy region. The heavy region? Yueqing was stunned and a wry smile appeared on her face. It was really a coincidence that she had guessed it. She asked, Are you sure? I should be sure. Because according to the staff, those guests had just come out of the heavy region. It's just that I don't know what this kid is doing in the heavy region, so I want to ask you. After all, you are all young people, and you gather more often. Wang Dafu said. Yueqing shook her head and said, If you don't tell me now, I don't even know that they have gone to the heavy region. How would I know anything else? Okay, then I won't disturb you. If you have time, come drink tea with me and chat with me. Wang Dafu smiled. Okay. Yueqing nodded. When Wang Dafu's shadow dissipated, Yueqing put away the voice transmission stone and looked at Yun Xiang with a smile. There's news, the heavy region. This guy is really skilled and bold. Yun Xiang shook his head with a smile. Isn't that so? He has just gone to the Een Demon Land, and now he has entered the heavy region. I feel that these forbidden areas are like his back garden in Qindage's eyes. Yueqing was helpless. Yun Xiang smiled and asked, Who was that person just now? His name is Wang Dafu, the sworn brother of the deputy chief. He is also Qin Dage's elder. He is a good person. Yueqing smiled. I see. Yun Ziang nodded and drank the last sip of tea in the cup. He stood up and smiled. Then I will leave first. So fast? Yueqing was stunned. Don't worry, I will be back soon. Yun Ziang rubbed Yueqing's head. His face was full of love, as if he was looking at his own sister. Then, he opened a space-time transmission channel. Then be careful, Yueqing warned. You too. Yun Ziang nodded and also reminded her. Then, he turned and stepped into the space-time transmission channel. Busy people. Yueqing shook her head. She tidied up the tea set and teapot, then left the secret room and went out to do her work. The heavy region. Yun Ziang descended above the entrance and looked at the black desert in front of him. Not only Qin Feiyong and the white-eyed wolf, but even the old ancestor had followed him to the heavy region. It seemed that Qin Feiyong had a purpose for this trip, but what was the purpose? Would the old ancestor be in danger if she followed him? Suddenly, Yun Ziang looked down at the entrance. There were many people sitting cross-legged on the mountain, cultivating. He could see the cultivation of these people at a glance. Swish. As he took a step forward, he landed in front of a middle-aged man with a high-level dominator cultivation. And the middle-aged man sensed the arrival of a strange aura and couldn't help but open his eyes. Looking at Yun Ziang, he asked suspiciously, You are? Yun Ziang smiled and said, Senior, let me ask around. Did Qin Feiyong enter the heavy region? Yes. Seeing that Yun Ziang's attitude was not bad, the middle-aged man nodded and smiled, then said, He entered the heavy region more than a month ago, accompanied by the golden-winged Wolf King and the old ancestor of the Yun family, Yun Zhongtian. Then why did they enter the heavy region? Yun Ziang was suspicious. I don't know, but I heard that they are going to the inner region. At that time, many people followed them, wanting to take advantage of them. But later, most of them returned. It is said that they couldn't withstand the gravity of the central region. The middle-aged man said, The inner region. Yun Ziang frowned and muttered, This guy is crazy. He actually wants to go to the inner region? Isn't that so? Although his ability is not small, the gravity of the inner region is something that even a peak sovereign can't withstand, let alone a peak sovereign. Hearing Yun Ziang's muttering, the middle-aged man shook his head and said, as if he was mocking Qin Feiyong for overestimating his own strength. What? He has stepped into the peak sovereign realm? Yun Ziang was shocked. Yes. Putting everything else aside, his cultivation speed is indeed amazing. The middle-aged man smiled bitterly. When one reached the sovereign realm, others would need millions, or even tens of millions of years to break through a small realm. But this person was like sitting on a rocket. Hearing this, Yun Ziang was silent for a while. His eyes flickered slightly as he looked at the middle-aged man, cupped his hands and said with a smile, Many thanks. It's nothing. The middle-aged man waved his hand. Yun Ziang smiled and stepped forward, quickly disappearing into the depths of the heavy region. There were some things he had to clarify, especially the current Yun family. He couldn't ignore it. Chapter 35-27. In the central region, Qin Feiyong and the white-eyed wolf were really reaching their limits. If it weren't for the black-bearded old man and the others' help, they would probably have to turn back. They had just arrived and the gravity was already so terrifying. It was hard to imagine how terrifying the gravity in the inner region would be. Little Qinzi, didn't you say that this was an opportunity to train? Come. Now let me see how you're going to train. The white-eyed wolf bared his teeth. With Qin Feiyong losing face with him, he finally felt better. Qin Feiyong rolled his eyes. He was really not in the mood to bicker with the white-eyed wolf now. To be honest, in this situation, even with the help of Yun Zhongtian, the black-bearded old man and the others, he did not dare to step into the inner region. The most important thing was, if he encountered danger, even if he had a lot of skills, he would not even have the strength to resist. Therefore, he could not go on like this. He had to find a way to overcome this gravity. Suddenly, Qin Feiyang looked at the two burly men who were supporting him and said with a smile, "Brothers, let go of me first." "What are you going to do?" The two men were suspicious. Qin Feiyang glanced at the desert in front of him and said in a deep voice, "Let go of me first. I'll try to see if there's a way to dispel this gravity." Dispel? The two men were slightly taken aback and hurriedly said, "Brother Qin, we know you're powerful, but this gravity is really impossible to deal with. Otherwise, we wouldn't have stayed in the outer region, let alone dispel it. Let's try. In this state, if we encounter danger, the white-eyed wolf and I will only be a burden to you." Qin Feiyang sighed. "Okay." The two men looked at each other and smiled helplessly, then let go of Qin Feiyang. Just as the two men let go, Qin Feiyang immediately felt as if a mountain was pressing down on his head. He immediately lay on the ground, motionless, facing a suffocating situation. So scary. Qin Feiyang was shocked and hurriedly released his divine power. But the appearance of divine power did not reduce the gravity in the slightest. Boom! The power of law roared out again. But it was useless. This gravity seemed to be able to ignore everything. "I don't believe it." Qin Feiyang gritted his teeth and activated the battle character art with a thought. However, the appearance of the armor did not affect the gravity at all. "Brother Qin, don't waste your energy. It doesn't matter if it's a divine technique, a divine artifact, divine power, or the power of laws. There are countless sceneries in the heavy realm, but so far, no one has found a way to resist this gravity," the black-bearded old man advised. Qin Feiyang raised his head and looked at the black-bearded old man. Even raising his head required all of his strength. The veins on his forehead bulged. When Qin Feiyang's gaze met the black-bearded old man's, the black-bearded old man saw a pair of eyes that were different from ordinary people's. There was an unyielding look in his eyes. Seeing this, the black-bearded old man no longer persuaded. Instead, he was looking forward to it. Perhaps this man could create another miracle. Qin Feiyang used his hands to support himself on the ground. He used all his strength to try and stand up, but the gravity firmly pressed down on him. In just a moment, his four limbs were incomparably sore, and his physical strength was severely overdrawn. A wave of exhaustion washed over him. "It seems that this time, I'm really in trouble," the white-eyed wolf murmured. It was the first time he saw Qin Feiyang so helpless. "Let me help you." Suddenly, a voice rang in Qin Feiyang's mind. It was the horsetail whisk. As a sovereign weapon, although it would also be affected by gravity, it would be much better because the sovereign weapon's endurance was strong. "No need." Qin Feiyang refused without hesitation. If he had to rely on the sovereign weapon for everything, then what was the point of working hard? Human. In difficult and desperate situations, he had to constantly strengthen himself. No matter how strong the sovereign weapon was, it was still an external object. You can't always rely on it. Qin Feiyang took a few deep breaths, regained his composure, gritted his teeth, and stood up again. His whole person was like a violent beast. As his strength continued to increase, the muscles all over his body swelled up. This was an invisible confrontation. A confrontation between will and gravity. Roar! Suddenly, Qin Feiyang let out a beast-like roar. The skin all over his body cracked inch by inch. Blood flowed down. In a few blinks of an eye, he was like a bloody man. Under the pressure of gravity, his pain was clearer and stronger than usual. The pain of skin tearing was nothing at all, because it was just a small injury. But now, he felt like he was being torn into pieces. The pain was unbearable. However, in this regard, he did not compromise. Gritting his teeth, his eyes were red. The power in his body was like a raging wave. His hands had already sunk into the ground. Once again, with a roar, the power in his body was like a flood that had opened the floodgates. In an instant, he stood up. But because of this, the cracks on his skin were almost all over his body. Blood flowed freely. It was a shocking sight. Amazing! Yun Zhongtian and the black-bearded old man looked at this scene and could not help but reveal a look of admiration. Under such circumstances, to be able to stand up, his willpower was really terrifying. However, although Qin Feiyang succeeded in standing up, the gravity was still there, constantly pressing down on him. His legs were trembling, his blood vessels were bursting, gradually sinking into the ground. His whole body was like a fallen leaf in the wind, swaying. I can't fall. Qin Feiyang's eyes were stubborn, because he did not have the confidence to stand up again after falling down. But no matter how he thought, the strength of the gravity did not weaken at all. He felt that he had really reached his limit. Blood flowed all over his body. The pain was so heart-wrenching that even his consciousness was dissipating. Brother Qin, don't force yourself. Yun Zhongtian could not bear it and softly advised. To be able to reach this step, it was already admirable and enough to prove himself, so there was no need to continue tormenting himself like this. Now is indeed a chance to train, because this gravity can help me break through my limits. Qin Feiyang whispered, even speaking was difficult. As his voice fell, he lifted his left foot and took a step forward. The distance between this step was very small, only 3 or 4 centimeters. But it was just this small step. He felt as if it had consumed all the strength in his body. His whole body swayed and fell to the ground. I must not fall. Qin Feiyang roared in his heart. Exerting strength in his feet, he stabilized his swaying body. Once again, he lifted his right foot with great difficulty and took another step forward. The distance was still only a few centimeters. It was like a turtle crawling. Seeing this, Yun Zhongtian no longer tried to dissuade Qin Feiyang. Instead, he took out a large number of divine life pellets. Every time Qin Feiyang took a step forward, he would feed Qin Feiyang a divine life pellet. But even so, it only served as a buffer. Time flew by. Half an hour passed. That's right. Qin Feiyang took one step at a time and had already persisted for half an hour. But in this half an hour, he had only walked a dozen or so meters. Half an hour, only a dozen or so meters. One could only imagine how he had managed to get through this half an hour. Even Yun Zhongtian, the black-bearded old man, and the others felt that every minute and every second felt like a year. So, it was no exaggeration to say that for Qin Feiyang at this moment, every second felt like a century. The exhaustion and pain brought about by his body and mind made him not know how many times he had thought of giving up. With the help of the sovereign divine weapon, why should he risk his life? But every time, he would decisively wipe away such thoughts and grit his teeth and persevere. If he relied on the sovereign divine weapon for everything, then what difference would he be from the princes and princesses of the dragons? He did not want to become a flower in a greenhouse. Pressure and despair in the eyes of others was a mountain that they did not have the courage to cross. But in their eyes, he was their motivation. In the past, this old man could not figure out how this child could have such achievements at such a young age. Now that I have seen this scene with my own eyes, this old man has suddenly realized that his achievements today are not by luck. The black-bearded old man looked at Qin Feiyang and sighed, his eyes full of praise and admiration. Yes, the others nodded in agreement. In the face of such powerful gravity, not to mention the young people, even the older generation had long given up. But this child, from the beginning to the end, had never said the word give up. Such perseverance and willpower was really unparalleled, because the current Qin Feiyang was already quite weak, and was completely relying on his perseverance and willpower to move forward against the wind. Woo-woo. Suddenly, there was the roar of a gust of wind in front. Not good. Yun Zhongtian, the black-bearded old man, and the others, when they heard the wind, their faces changed. What? The white-eyed wolf was puzzled. Yun Zhongtian said in a deep voice, in the heavy region, especially the central region, the most feared thing is encountering a storm because our movements are restricted by gravity and it is very difficult to avoid the attack of the storm. That's right. The storm in the central region can kill living beings below the sovereign realm in an instant. Although our cultivation is at the sovereign realm, under such circumstances, it is very difficult to stand firm. If we are swept away by the storm, it is basically a dead end. So, as long as we encounter a storm, no matter who it is, we will immediately run for our lives. The black-bearded old man said, his face extremely solemn. The situation was already very bad, and now that there was a storm, it was really one disaster after another. So scary? The white-eyed wolf was shocked and urged, "Then what are we hesitating for? Hurry up and run for our lives." Yun Zhongtian and the black-bearded old man looked at each other and immediately took action. A few of them dragged the white-eyed wolf, and a few pulled Qin Feiyang and ran to the left. Rather than calling it running, it was better to call it walking. Because under the current gravity, they could not run, and every step was extremely strenuous. Woo-woo. The storm was getting closer and closer, and black sand flew all over the sky, covering all directions. What the hell? When Yun Zhongtian saw the storm, he could not help but roar. The range of the storm was hundreds of kilometers, and with their current speed, there was no way they could escape to a safe area before the storm arrived. This is already a medium-sized storm. We are really unlucky. The black-bearded old man and the others' faces were also pale. Normally, a medium-scale storm like this would be hard to come by in 100 years in the heavy region. However, today, they had bumped into it. Perhaps they didn't choose a good day before they left. Chapter 35:28. Then what should we do? The white-eyed wolf cried out. Yun Zhongtian stared at the approaching storm and then looked at the black-bearded old man and the others before he said solemnly, "There's no point in running away now. Let's hold hands and form a circle, protecting Qin Feiyang and the Wolf King in the middle." All right. The 12 of them nodded and let go of the white-eyed wolf and Qin Feiyang. Then, they quickly spread out, holding hands and surrounding Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf. "Why aren't you activating the power of laws?" The white-eyed wolf frowned. Although the power of laws couldn't block gravity, it could block the storm. The storm's lethality was only at the level of a small success sovereign. Because Yun Zhongtian and the others had said that the storm could instantly kill creatures below the large success sovereign realm, its lethality was naturally at the small success sovereign realm. With the cultivation of Yun Zhongtian and the others, wouldn't it be easy for them to activate the power of laws to block the storm? Yun Zhongtian sighed. "We want to, but activating the power of laws is useless." "What?" The white-eyed wolf was shocked. "Useless?" "That's right. This storm is just like gravity. It can ignore everything. So even if you activate a barrier, the storm will still enter the barrier." Yun Zhongtian said. "No way." The white-eyed wolf lay on the ground, the corner of its mouth twitching. No wonder these people looked like they had seen a ghost when they saw the storm. It was the same as gravity. Without anyone to help it, it could only lie on the ground, unable to stand up. Moreover, its cultivation was lower than Qin Feiyang, so its situation was worse than Qin Feiyang's. "Little Qinzi, you're this big brother's thigh. You have to hold on." The white-eyed wolf struggled to crawl to Qin Feiyang's feet, its claws firmly hugging Qin Feiyang's thigh. Seeing this, Qin Feiyang's face couldn't help but darken. He couldn't even protect himself, yet it was still hugging him? Was he really planning to die on the same day, on the same month, on the same year? But now, there was no other way. If they did not work together, it might really be difficult to get through this hurdle. Woo-woo! The storm howled and the sound of the wind was ear-piercing. 50 kilometers, 90 kilometers, 80 kilometers. Seeing that the storm was getting closer and closer, everyone was extremely nervous. Boom! Finally, a storm swept over. "Hold on tight, don't get swept away," Yun Zhongtian roared. In an instant, the group of people was engulfed by the storm. The originally soft sand was now like steel balls, crazily hitting their bodies. The white-eyed wolf and Qin Feiyang's bodies immediately split open. Yun Zhongtian and the others were in an extremely bad situation as well. His clothes were ragged and swaying as if he would be blown away at any moment. "Fuck!" The white-eyed wolf cursed angrily. Its entire body was blown up and suspended in the air. Its front pair of claws were tightly hugging Qin Feiyang's thighs. Regarding this, Qin Feiyang was having a headache. He was already unable to withstand it, and with the white-eyed wolf's actions, the pressure was even greater. His body swayed in the raging wind, and although his thighs had sunk into the sand, he was still forced to retreat. Suddenly, Qin Feiyang lost his balance and his entire body flew up. Together with the white-eyed wolf, they crashed into the black-bearded old man behind them. This collision caused a chain reaction. The black-bearded old man also staggered and fell backwards. Yun Zhongtian and the other 11 people were also forced to retreat. Steady! Yun Zhongtian roared and stomped his feet. Apart from his head, his entire body sunk into the ground. He held on tightly to the hands of the two burly men beside him and looked at Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf, shouting, "You must catch him!" Because when they crashed into the black-bearded old man, Qin Feiyang grabbed the old man's arm in a moment of desperation. So now he was grabbing the black-bearded old man while the white-eyed wolf was holding on to his thigh. One man and one wolf were blown up by the raging wind, swinging in the air. Suddenly, Qin Feiyang felt a tearing pain coming from his thigh. Turning back to look, he was instantly enraged and roared, "Damn wolf cub, what are you doing?" The white-eyed wolf seemed to be unable to hold on and bit Qin Feiyang's thigh. Its sharp fangs tore through the flesh and stuck on Qin Feiyang's thigh bone. "What are you being so fierce for? I haven't even complained about your smelly feet yet." The white-eyed wolf snorted coldly. Now, it could not speak and could only transmit its voice. Qin Feiyang's face was dark and his veins were popping. How could there be such a shameless bastard? About 10 breaths passed. The storm finally left. The white-eyed wolf and Qin Feiyang smashed directly to the ground. Yun Zhongtian, the black-bearded old man and the others were also lying on the ground, panting heavily. Everyone's face was filled with fear. Fortunately, the storm passed quickly, otherwise it would have been disastrous. The white-eyed wolf lay there powerlessly, muttering, "It's too scary, I don't want to go to the inner area." Not only was there gravity, but there was also a storm. The most important thing was that even the power of the laws could not resist it. How could they play? Qin Feiyang looked at his bloody thigh and glared fiercely at the white-eyed wolf. He swallowed a divine life pill and prepared to get up. But now, he was even more tired. The strength in his body seemed to have been sucked out, and it was difficult for him to even move. "Don't force yourself, retreat," the white-eyed wolf said. Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes and raised his head with difficulty, looking at the desert ahead. Although the Een Demon Land not only had the power of the Een Demons, but there were also fierce beasts that were not afraid of the Een Demon power, but in comparison, the heavy region was more terrifying. "Brother Qin, why don't we withdraw from the central region first and recuperate for a while before coming back?" Yun Zhongtian looked at Qin Feiyang and also had the thought of retreating. If he had not experienced the storm, it would have been fine, but now, his condition was also extremely bad. Qin Feiyang looked at Yun Zhongtian and then looked at the exhausted black-bearded old man and the others. He nodded and said, "All right, let's go to the border region to recuperate." Hearing that, Yun Zhongtian, the black-bearded old man and the others got up and walked in front of Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf, intending to help them up. Woo-woo. But at this time, in the depths of the front, there was another ear-piercing sound of the wind. Yun Zhongtian, the black-bearded old man and the others looked at each other. Was this an illusion? It must be. Otherwise, how could they hear the wind again? However, the sound of the wind was getting more and more ear-piercing. Gusts of wind rolled up the black sand that filled the sky, rolling in from the depths. "Damn you!" Looking at this scene, even an old senior like Yun Zhongtian could not help but curse. The black-bearded old man and the others were the same. Their faces were ashen, and they all wanted to curse. There was a storm just now, and now there was another storm. Did they not let them breathe? Damn it! This is a large-scale storm. Suddenly, one of the burly men roared. "What?" Yun Zhongtian and the others looked over, and their faces suddenly turned pale. The storm that was surging over swept thousands of kilometers. It was simply a catastrophe. The white-eyed wolf was in despair. Qin Feiyang was also powerless to speak. It seemed that they really did not choose the right day, and today was destined to be an unlucky day. "Quick, take the divine life elixir and resist the storm." Yun Zhongtian came back to his senses and quickly took out dozens of divine life elixirs and roared. These divine life elixirs all had 7 dragon-shaped elixir chi. For someone of Yun Zhongtian's level and status, It was not strange for him to have 7 dragon-shaped elixir chi. When the black-bearded old man and the others heard this, they immediately stepped forward. Each took 2 divine life elixirs and stuffed them into their mouths. At this point, it was useless to complain, so they could only bite the bullet. Same old rules. Brother Qin, Brother Wolf King, you must hold on, Yun Zhongtian shouted. More than a dozen people immediately held hands and surrounded Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf. Qin Feiyang smiled bitterly. He did not even have the strength to stand up now. How could he face this storm? One must know, this was a large-scale storm that was more terrifying than before. In the blink of an eye, the storm swept over mercilessly with dust and sand. Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf were immediately blown away. Damn you! The white-eyed wolf roared. How could it and Qin Feiyang withstand the storm in their current state? Yun Zhongtian's face changed as well, and in the nick of time, he bit down on the white-eyed wolf's tail. Little Yun, what are you doing? The white-eyed wolf cried out in pain. Cut the crap and bite Qin Feiyang's arm. Yun Zhongtian shouted. Both his hands were grabbing onto others, and he could not let go, so he could only bite down on the white-eyed wolf's tail to prevent it from being blown away. Hearing this, the white-eyed wolf looked at Qin Feiyang, who flew past it and immediately opened its bloody mouth, biting down on Qin Feiyang's arm. Pieces of flesh were torn off, and the intense pain caused Qin Feiyang to tremble. He opened his eyes and looked around, his face darkening slightly. He and the white-eyed wolf were both floating in the void like a rope, swaying constantly. Not only were they unable to help Yun Zhongtian and the others, they had become a burden. Yun Zhongtian and the others were also in imminent danger. All of them were standing on a small boat in the midst of a raging storm. Elder Yun, I can't hold on any longer. A big man in black robes shouted anxiously. You have to hold on. Yun Zhongtian shouted. The big man in black's body had already become a bloody mess under the beating of the sand, and a trace of despair crept into his eyes. The others were the same. If they could not hold on, they would be swept away by the storm. When that happened, they would be ravaged by the storm. Even if they were full cycle dominators, they would be crushed by the sand and the storm sooner or later. In short, as long as they were hit by the storm, it would be a situation of 9 deaths and 1 life. We can't fall, or we will all die. Even under the double attack of gravity and the storm, Qin Feiyang did not give in. I will definitely break the limit, he roared in his heart, and his powerless hands slowly clenched into fists. At this moment, Qin Feiyang's body and the white-eyed wolf's body had already become a bloody mess under the ravaging of the storm and gravity, and even their bones could be seen clearly. I can do it! Qin Feiyang clenched his fists fiercely and roared into the sky. His flesh exploded and dyed the sky red. Boom! It was also at this moment that loud rumbling sounds exploded within Qin Feiyang's body, like the roar of thunder, like the rolling of a chariot, as if a mysterious door had been forcefully broken open and was slowly opening. Chapter 35-29. What's going on? Yun Zhongtian and the others turned to look at Qin Feiyang. Although the rumbling sound came from within Qin Feiyang's body, they could still hear it clearly. All of them were extremely bewildered. Not good. His physical body is exploding. Think of something quickly, or he will definitely be smashed to smithereens. The black-bearded old man's face changed as he roared at Yun Zhongtian. Yun Zhongtian revealed a bitter smile. What else could he do now? He could only use the sovereign divine weapon. But just as Yun Zhongtian was about to call out the sword of the Grim Reaper, the rumbling sound within Qin Feiyang's body suddenly soared to a deafening level. It sounded as if an ancient door was opening, and at the same time, Qin Feiyang's mangled body released wisps of purplish gold divine light, covering every inch of his flesh, every single cell. This is... The white-eyed wolf looked at this scene and shuddered. Because it was biting Qin Feiyang's arm, it could clearly sense the changes in Qin Feiyang at this moment. This purplish gold divine light was not from any treasure, but from Qin Feiyang's blood. One must know, ever since he had taken the elixir given by Qin Batian, Qin Feiyang's blood had always been no different from a normal person's. So now, seeing the purplish gold divine light appear, it was extremely surprised. Moreover, because the white-eyed wolf was biting Qin Feiyang's arm, Qin Feiyang's blood had also flowed into its mouth. It could clearly sense that the purplish gold dragon blood hidden within his blood was quickly awakening. In short, it had already tasted the dragon blood. What is going on? Yun Zhongtian and the others were extremely bewildered. Rumble. Suddenly, an exceptionally loud sound rang out from within Qin Feiyang's body. Following that, a vast and mighty dragon's might roared out and surged out in all directions from all directions. Dragon's might? Yun Zhongtian and the others stared angrily. Why was there a dragon's might rushing out from Qin Feiyang's body? Could it be that he was transformed from a divine dragon? But that's not right. That was Yun Zhongtian's rejection. If Qin Feiyang was the incarnation of a divine dragon, then why would he fight against dragons? Then he looked at Qin Feiyang. The blood-red blood had already disappeared, replaced by extremely pure purple-gold dragon blood. The purple-gold dragon blood has recovered. Could it be that the pill given by Qin Batian has an expiration date? The white-eyed wolf grumbled. With the recovery of the purple-gold dragon blood, Qin Feiyang's eyes also emitted beams of purple-gold divine light that were as dazzling as two scorching suns. Boom! The next moment, a terrifying aura rushed out from Qin Feiyang's body. This was not the aura of cultivation, nor was it the aura of divine power or the power of loss. Instead, it was the aura of the physical body. His body was shrouded in purple-gold divine light. He looked like a piece of divine metal that was glowing with divine light. Holy shit! The white-eyed wolf carefully sized up Qin Feiyang. Suddenly, his pupils shrank and he roared in his heart. He realized that Qin Feiyang's physical body was transforming. That's right. Originally, Qin Feiyang's physical body had already reached the supreme level, but he was unable to break through the shackles and strengthen himself to the heaven-defying level. At that moment, the white-eyed wolf could clearly feel that Qin Feiyang's physical body was transforming towards the heaven-defying level. He had actually broken through the limit, and it was the limit of his physical body. Boom! After a few breaths, an unparalleled aura rushed out from Qin Feiyang's body. This aura had reached the heaven-defying level. Yun Zhongtian and the others were also dumbfounded. As long as one was not a fool, they could see that Qin Feiyang was transforming. At the moment his physical body was transforming, Qin Feiyang's depleted energy surged out from every inch of his body like a fountain. At that moment, Qin Feiyang could feel that the gravitational force pressing down on him had weakened a lot. If he were to calculate it in numbers, it should be a tenth. Even he himself had not thought that this unintentional action would be able to break through the shackles of that elixir and revive the purple-gold dragon blood, even breaking through the limits of his physical body. The storm was still raging. Yun Zhongtian and the others were also reaching their limits as they swayed and swayed. Seeing the situation, Qin Feiyang took a step back and landed on the ground. The gravitational force was reduced by a tenth, and his strength was fully recovered as he was finally able to stand firmly on the ground. He then grabbed hold of the ingrate with one hand and Yun Zhongtian with the other as he shouted, "Everyone, hold tight." Looking at Qin Feiyang standing proudly in the midst of the raging winds, Yun Zhongtian, the black-bearded old man and the others seemed to have found a pillar of support in their hearts as they held onto each other's hands tightly. Even their depleted energy seemed to have recovered quite a bit. Time passed by breath after breath, about 500 to 600 breaths. The storm finally left. Yun Zhongtian and the others did not care about their image at all as they sprawled out on the desert, all of them panting heavily. The white-eyed wolf was even more wretched. There was not a single part of his body that was intact and the white bones were clearly visible. Although Qin Feiyang had regained his strength, but because his injuries were too severe, once the storm had passed, he sat down on the ground in exhaustion, his entire body in unbearable pain. But at that moment, his excitement was greater than the pain. This excitement was not because of the revival of the purple gold dragon blood, but because of the evolution of his physical body. In the past, his physical body, if measured by the level of a divine artifact, was only a supreme grade divine artifact. not even close to the threshold of a heaven-defying divine artifact. But now, his physical body had evolved to a heaven-defying divine artifact, which was equivalent to a lower-grade heaven-defying divine artifact. In other words, in the past, he could crush a supreme-grade divine artifact with his bare hands. But now, he could fight against a heaven-defying divine artifact with his bare hands. It could be said that this was a breakthrough by leaps and bounds. Most importantly, as long as he could successfully open this door, it would be much easier for his physical body to evolve in the future. The white-eyed wolf said angrily, "Little Qin Zi, damn you. Hurry up and give me the elixir. Do you want to see me die?" Huh. Qin Feiyong came back to his senses. Looking at the wretched state the white-eyed wolf was in, he could not help but want to laugh. He took out a dozen or so elixirs and gave them to the white-eyed wolf, Yun Zhongtian and the others. He took one for himself as well. Without the storm, the gravity had also decreased a little, so his injuries healed very quickly. The white-eyed wolf said with a bitter face, "Little Qin Zi, you're awesome. You actually made your physical body evolve. When the little crazy brat sees this, he'll definitely be envious and jealous." "I'm also very surprised." Qin Feiyong shook his head with a smile. The white-eyed wolf rolled his eyes. Even rolling his eyes was tiring. Then, as if he had realized something, he looked at Qin Feiyong in surprise and asked, "Wait a minute. You look so relaxed. Could it be that the gravity is also gone?" "Yes, but it's weakened quite a bit. About a tenth of it. It's barely bearable." Qin Feiyong nodded. "There's such a benefit to evolving your physical body?" The white-eyed wolf was stunned. Hearing this, Yun Zhongtian and the others slowly got up and looked at Qin Feiyong in surprise. Qin Feiyong pondered for a moment and said, "I think this is the way to break the gravity. Strengthen the physical body and counteract the gravity?" Yun Zhongtian asked. "That's right. As the physical body strengthens, the gravity will continue to decrease." Qin Feiyong nodded. "That doesn't make sense. According to what you said, that heaven-defying artifact should be able to withstand this gravity. After all, your current physical body is only at the same level as a low-level heaven-defying artifact." Yun Zhongtian frowned. "You can't compare it like that. Besides, the rules of the heavy regions may be set by people. If it's really set by people, then there will naturally be some targeting. If the physical body works, then the heaven-defying artifact might not. In short, we can't use ordinary thinking to think about places like this," Qin Feiyong said. "That's true." Yun Zhongtian nodded and then sighed. "You really amaze people time and time again." "Amaze? What do you mean?" Qin Feiyong was suspicious. "It's your physical body. Look at our sky cloud realm. Who can raise the strength of their physical body to the heaven-defying level? In the eyes of others, this is simply impossible." Yun Zhongtian smiled bitterly. "Yes, in today's world, everyone knows that the limit of the physical body is the supreme level. This is the first time this old man has seen a heaven-defying level physical body." The black-bearded old man and the others were also sighing. Otherwise, who would dare to believe it when they saw it with their own eyes? "In fact, I have been looking for a way to break the limits of the physical body in the past, but as you said, no one has succeeded, so there was no one to ask for advice. And this time, to be honest, I didn't have such an idea at all. I just wanted to try and see if I could break a certain limit." In other words, it wasn't specifically to break the limits of the physical body. But I didn't expect that I would accidentally break the limits of the physical body. Qin Feiyong couldn't help but smile bitterly. Yun Zhongtian asked, "Then, the limit of the heaven-defying level isn't much different from before, and it still requires external force?" "From the looks of it, that's the case. It just requires a stronger external force, and not everyone can withstand it. And the most important thing should be perseverance, will, and never give up. An indomitable state of mind." Qin Feiyong analyzed. Perseverance, will, and one's state of mind need not be said. They are all necessary. And this external force is really not something the average person can withstand. Just now, when I saw your physical body explode, I thought you were going to be smashed to pieces. Yun Zhongtian shook his head. If Qin Feiyang had not succeeded, he would have been smashed to pieces. But fortunately, he had succeeded. When the white-eyed wolf heard that, he did not make a sound, his eyes darting around, not knowing what he was thinking. While they were talking, Qin Feiyang's skin was almost completely repaired. He turned around and took out a shirt to wear. On one hand, it was to cover his embarrassment, and on the other hand, it was to hide his potential mark. Brother Qin, I have a question, I think. Yun Zhongtian looked at Qin Feiyang, hesitating to speak. After Qin Feiyang put on his clothes, he turned his head to look at Yun Zhongtian, and then at the black-bearded old man and the others. They all had a suspicious look in their eyes as he smiled faintly. Do you want to ask if I am a divine dragon? Yes. Yun Zhongtian nodded. No. Qin Feiyang shook his head. Yun Zhongtian asked suspiciously. Then why do you have the bloodline power of the divine dragon and the legendary purple-gold dragon blood? One must know. The purple-gold divine dragon, even in the sky cloud realm, was a legendary existence. They had heard of it, but no one had ever seen it. And now, the purple-gold dragon blood actually appeared in a human's body. Think about it. How strange was that? It's hereditary. I'm not sure about the specifics. We need to slowly investigate it in the future. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. Hereditary? The group looked at each other. Could it be that this child was the descendant of the purple-gold divine dragon and a human? Chapter 35:30. The white-eyed wolf glanced at the group of people and said telepathically, Little Qin Zi, do we need to silence them? Silence them? Qin Feiyang was taken aback. The white-eyed wolf thought, that's right. Look, they all saw your purple-gold dragon blood. If we don't silence them, what if they spread the news? Qin Feiyang couldn't help but laugh and said telepathically, there's no need to silence them because it doesn't matter if they are exposed now. At most, it will cause a stir. Besides, his greatest enemy was the dragons. If the dragons didn't know, it was indeed necessary to hide so that they wouldn't target him when they heard the news. But now, the dragons already knew everything about him. So now, there was no need at all. All right, you decide. The white-eyed wolf didn't say anything else. Suddenly, there's someone. Yun Zhongtian looked at the desert ahead, his eyes flashing. Qin Feiyang and the others were also shocked. They hurriedly looked up and their pupils immediately shrank. At the end of the desert ahead, they really saw a blurry figure. I didn't expect that other than us, there would be someone who dares to go so deep. The black-bearded old man muttered. Qin Feiyang retracted his gaze and looked at the group of people. Don't worry about that. Let's heal first. Okay. The group of people nodded and sat cross-legged on the ground, using the energy of the divine life pill to quickly heal their injuries. Qin Feiyang walked to the white-eyed wolf and frowned. You can't go on like this. What? Are you starting to dislike me for dragging you down? The white-eyed wolf scowled. Ahem. Qin Feiyang coughed and said speechlessly, You have a rich imagination. Do you think I'll dislike you? I think you're looking at me with disdain. The white-eyed wolf snorted. Qin Feiyang rubbed his forehead and said angrily, Can't you speak properly? What I mean is, why don't you give it a try and see if you can break through the limits of your physical body with the help of this gravity? The white-eyed wolf fell silent. No confidence? Qin Feiyang asked with a smile. Get lost. The white-eyed wolf felt as if his tail had been stepped on. He shouted angrily, There is no such word in my dictionary. If that's the case, why are you still hesitating? Qin Feiyang looked at it mockingly. I didn't hesitate. The white-eyed wolf glared fiercely at Qin Feiyang and said with a pout, I just don't feel good. Why are you the one who broke the limits of your physical body first? In terms of talent, perseverance, and mental state, I don't lose to you. Save it. Your talent, perseverance, and state of mind are indeed good, but have you ever tried? Let's not talk about anything else. Let's talk about the power of laws. All you think about all day long is depriving others of it. You don't work hard at all. Qin Feiyang's face was full of disdain. When the white-eyed wolf heard this, he immediately retorted, "There is a big problem with your words." "What problem?" Qin Feiyong was suspicious. "Depriving others of their laws also requires hard work, okay? If you don't work hard to snatch it, do you think others will give it to you with both hands?" The white-eyed wolf said. Qin Feiyong was stunned. "Don't you think it makes sense?" The white-eyed wolf bared his teeth. "This is the logic of a bandit." Qin Feiyong rolled his eyes. "Why do you care if I'm a bandit or a robber? Anyway, it's fine as long as I can become stronger." The white-eyed wolf raised his head like a proud miser, making Qin Feiyong feel helpless. But the white-eyed wolf laughed again and said, "The limits of the physical body indeed need to be broken. I can't lose to you." The corner of Qin Feiyong's mouth twitched and he said helplessly, "Can you not always think about winning or losing with me? Senior brother Feng Zi is the same. I don't understand. With our friendship, is there a need for this?" The white-eyed wolf said, "I really want to compete with others, but there's no other way. Can you find someone better than us in the younger generation of the Sky Cloud realm?" Qin Feiyong didn't know whether to laugh or cry. If these words were to spread in the Sky Cloud realm, it would definitely cause public outrage. Okay, don't disturb me. Now, I need to recuperate and store up my strength so that I can break the limits of the physical body in one fell swoop." The white-eyed wolf was full of pride, but he was a little weak in his heart. If the limits of the physical body were really so easy to break, then Qin Feiyong wouldn't have been stuck in the Supreme Realm for so many years. Qin Feiyong shook his head and laughed, looking up into the depths of the desert. Immediately, there was a trace of surprise in his eyes. The shadow that he had seen earlier was still there. It had not taken a single step forward, nor had it taken a single step backward. "Strange," Qin Feiyong muttered. Suddenly, he frowned slightly and looked over. He found that it didn't look like the shadow of a person, but more like the shadow of a building. Impossible. How could there be a building in the heavy region? He looked at it seriously for a while, and finally confirmed that it was indeed not a human figure. After pondering for a while, Qin Feiyong finally suppressed the curiosity in his heart, sat down cross-legged, and began to recuperate. He wanted to go take a look now, but in such an environment, he really didn't dare to act alone. It wasn't because he was worried about his own safety, but because he was worried about the safety of the white-eyed wolf, Yun Zhongtian, and the others. If they accidentally got separated or encountered a storm or other dangers, there wouldn't be anyone to take care of them. So now, no matter where they went, they had to go together. Time flew by. The next day, early morning. Their injuries were finally healed, and their essence, chi and spirit were restored to their peak state. The group of people opened their eyes one after another. Qin Feiyong looked at the desert in front of him again. The shadow was still there. Even though a day had passed, it didn't move at all. This confirmed his inner thoughts that it wasn't a human figure. Yun Zhongtian and the others soon found that the shadow was still there, and there was a look of surprise in their eyes. "According to my observation, it shouldn't be a human figure. It may be the shadow of a building, but it's too far away to see clearly. Coupled with the atmosphere in the heavy region, our first reaction was to think that it was the shadow of a person." Qin Feiyong said. "A building?" Hearing Qin Feiyong's words, Yun Zhongtian and the others suddenly showed surprise in their eyes. "Have you all recuperated?" Qin Feiyong asked.
Yes.
Yun Zhongtian and the others nodded. "Then let's go and have a look." Qin Feiyong smiled and took the lead to walk into the depths of the desert. "Little Qin Zi, wait." The white-eyed wolf's voice suddenly sounded behind them. Qin Feiyong stopped and turned to look at the white-eyed wolf suspiciously. The white-eyed wolf was lying on the ground, facing the terrifying gravity. It was difficult for him to even move. He said, "You guys go first." Qin Feiyong was stunned. Yun Zhongtian was also stunned when he heard this and quickly asked, "Brother Wolf King, where are you going? You can't run around alone in the heavy region." "It's okay. I'll be there soon," the white-eyed wolf said. Yun Zhongtian looked at Qin Feiyong. Qin Feiyong looked at the white-eyed wolf and shook his head with a smile. "Do as you wish. Brother Qin, you Yun Zhongtian looked at Qin Feiyang in shock. He actually let the white-eyed wolf stay here alone? It's okay. Qin Feiyang waved his hand, took out the horsetail whisk, and said with a smile, "Follow the white-eyed wolf, and come find us in the depths." Okay. The horsetail whisk responded and disappeared into the white-eyed wolf's body. Good luck. Qin Feiyang chuckled at the white-eyed wolf, then turned and walked into the depths without looking back. Yun Zhongtian looked at the white-eyed wolf with a trace of suspicion on his face, then turned and chased after Qin Feiyang. He really didn't understand what the white-eyed wolf was going to do. One had to know. The gravity here had reached the level that the white-eyed wolf could withstand, and it couldn't even get up. Leaving it here alone was undoubtedly waiting for death. However, since Qin Feiyang had already agreed, then he couldn't say anything more. Moreover, Qin Feiyang had left the horsetail whisk behind to protect the white-eyed wolf, so there shouldn't be any accidents. The black-bearded old man and the others looked at each other, a trace of deep fear in their eyes as they hurriedly chased after Qin Feiyang and Yun Zhongtian. Along the way these days, seeing Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf in such a sorry state, they had almost forgotten that these people had sovereign divine weapons in their hands. With the sovereign divine weapons in their hands, even if they were to face an unresolvable crisis of death, they wouldn't really fall. In other words, to Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf, this was just a training session to hone themselves. Hundreds of breaths passed. Qin Feiyang and the others had walked about half a mile or so. This speed was already their limit. Compared to yesterday, Qin Feiyang's walking speed could be said to be extremely fast. After all, yesterday, they had spent an hour and only walked a dozen meters. And as they continued to go deeper, Qin Feiyang felt that the gravity began to gradually increase. Because the deeper they went, the greater the gravity, and the endurance of his physical body would gradually weaken. And after hundreds of breaths, the black shadow in front of them had not changed at all. It could be seen that the black shadow was quite far away from their current position. Heaven bless us. Please don't encounter another storm, Yun Zhongtian muttered. For them, the gravity was only secondary, and the threat of the storm was the greatest. Time passed slowly. After an hour, the black shadow finally enlarged a little, and they could already roughly see an outline, like a black stone tablet, quietly standing in the depths of the desert. Yun Zhongtian said excitedly, "Brother Qin, could this be the appearance of some treasure?" Treasure? Qin Feiyang was taken aback. It's possible, because there are many treasures in the heavy region, and they are all buried under the desert. If you don't know in advance, even if you pass by above, you won't find out. This old man speculates that the two storms yesterday must have swept away the sand and dust here, allowing the buried treasures to see the light again. The black-bearded old man analyzed, and there was a trace of excitement in his eyes. Hearing the words of Yun Zhongtian and the black-bearded old man, the other 11 people could not help but be excited. They had been exploring and searching for treasures in the heavy region all year round, and although they knew nothing about the inner and core regions, they more or less knew a little about the situation in the central region. Once a treasure appeared in the central region, it would definitely be a legendary and supreme-grade heaven-defying divine object. For Qin Feiyang and Yun Zhongtian, heaven-defying divine objects were no longer that attractive, but for the black-bearded old man and the others, it was definitely a divine object worth fighting for. Chapter 35-31. Qin Feiyang looked at Yun Zhongtian and the others and said with a smile, "I'd rather it be a place of inheritance of the power of laws." A place of inheritance of the power of laws? The group of people looked at each other when they heard this, and they couldn't help but smile bitterly. Who wouldn't want such a good thing? But was it possible? So far, no one had found a place of inheritance of the power of laws in the central region. Yun Zhongtian asked, "Brother Qin, you have been to the inner region of the Yin Demon Land. Is there any inheritance of the power of laws in the inner region?" When the black-bearded old man and the others heard this, they couldn't help but look at Qin Feiyang. Yes, and there are also inheritances of the strongest laws and supreme mysteries. Qin Feiyang nodded with a smile. The group of people's hearts trembled. There was actually an inheritance of the supreme mysteries. If they could get an inheritance, wouldn't they immediately be like a fish leaping through the dragon gate, soaring into the sky and stepping into the peak of the sky cloud realm? However, if you can't overcome the erosion of the demon power and step into the inner region, you will die without a doubt. Qin Feiyang smiled. The implication was that although the inheritance was tempting, it was best not to go. The black-bearded old man said, "Then I'll take the liberty to ask, how did you enter the inner region?" Qin Feiyang pondered for a moment and said with a smile, "It's all thanks to Senior Brother Madman. Of course, it's fine for the white-eyed wolf to enter the inner region alone." Why? Everyone was suspicious, because the white-eyed wolf can absorb the demon power. As for Senior Brother Madman, he is even more powerful. Not only can he absorb it, but he can also isolate the demon power. Qin Feiyang smiled. Absorb? Isolate? When the group heard this, they looked at each other. They never thought that the white-eyed wolf and Madman Emo would have such an ability. Let's not talk about isolation, let's talk about absorption. From ancient times until now, except for the beasts living in the demon land, they had never heard of anyone who could absorb the demon power, especially in the inner region. Even the beasts living in the demon land couldn't withstand the demon power in the inner region, at most in the central region. This group of people were indeed monsters. In the evening, the group of people walked like snails for about 70 to 80 miles before they finally saw the true face of the black shadow in front of them. It was indeed a stone tablet. Its entire body was black, and it stood alone in the desert, emitting an ancient aura. The black-bearded old man looked at the dark sky and suggested, "Everyone is probably tired. Why don't we take a rest first and continue our journey tomorrow morning?" Yun Zhongtian looked at the stone tablet deep within and nodded his head. "All right, we'll continue tomorrow." Although they could already see the stone tablet and estimated that it was only about 1,000 miles away from their current location, with their current speed, it would take them 10 days to half a month to cover the distance of 1,000 miles. This scene caused them to involuntarily recall an ancient saying. Far away on the horizon, yet close at hand. The stone tablet was clearly right in front of him. If they were outside, this distance would only take a blink of an eye. But now, it was as far away as the horizon, untouchable. It was a quiet night. The next day, the group of people set off again. They were like solitary travelers, silently walking in the desert. The third day, the fourth day, in the blink of an eye, half a month passed. The group of people traveled during the day and rested at night before they finally came before the stone tablet. From afar, the stone tablet looked small, but upon closer inspection, the stone tablet was more than 100 feet tall, like a mountain. Standing at the foot of the stone tablet, one could not help but feel small and insignificant. Yun Zhongtian went forward warily and reached out his hand to touch the stone tablet. When his fingertips touched the stone tablet, a thick and boundless aura suddenly surged towards Yun Zhongtian like a tidal wave. Although Yun Zhongtian had already mentally prepared himself, he was still pushed back by that surge of aura. When Qin Feiyang and the others saw the situation, they quickly went forward and asked with concern, "Are you all right?" Yun Zhongtian steadied himself and shook his head, saying, "I'm fine." After saying that, he raised his head to look at the stone tablet and said with a frown, "But this stone tablet is not as simple as it seems. If I'm not wrong, it should be a supreme-level heaven-defying artifact." Hearing that, the eyes of the black-bearded old man and the others lit up. A trace of disappointment crept up on Qin Feiyang's face. If it was just a heaven-defying artifact, then it was not that interesting. However, he still raised his head to look at the stone tablet. Although the stone tablet was very tall, there was not a single word or image on it, just like a flat mirror. When he went around the stone tablet and looked at the other side of the stone tablet, his gaze suddenly trembled. "What is it?" Yun Zhongtian and the others noticed Qin Feiyang's abnormality, and they all walked over to Qin Feiyang's side. When they raised their heads to look, their bodies also trembled violently. On the other side of the stone tablet, there were 3 bloody words engraved on it. God-slaying tablet. Every stroke, every drawing, seemed to be condensed from fresh blood, exuding a great murderous aura. God-slaying tablet. This must be a supreme-level heaven-defying artifact. The black-bearded old man and the others clenched their hands tightly, their eyes filled with desire. To them who had not grasped the highest profound meaning, a supreme-level heaven-defying artifact was no less than a trump card. However, they did not try to snatch it, because in front of Qin Feiyang and Yuan Zhongtian, they did not have the guts to do so. Yuan Zhongtian glanced at the black-bearded old man and the others as he transmitted his voice to them. Brother Qin, according to this old man's observations, this god-slaying tablet is no ordinary supreme-level heaven-defying artifact. What do you mean? Qin Feiyang was originally lacking in interest, but hearing Yuan Zhongtian's words, he could not help but feel a little more interested. Yuan Zhongtian said to himself, "When I touched the stone tablet earlier, I could feel the aura of the stone tablet surpassing that of a supreme-level heaven-defying artifact." Surpassing? Qin Feiyang was taken aback, and with a trace of surprise, he walked over to the stone tablet and raised his arm, slowly approaching the god-slaying tablet. When his fingertips came into contact with the surface of the tablet, he could feel a boundless aura surging towards him. At that moment, his entire being was sent flying backwards, but at the same time, his eyes could not help but flash with a glint. Towards a supreme-level heaven-defying artifact, it could be said that his understanding was no less than Yuan Zhongtian's, because he had seen far too many supreme-level heaven-defying artifacts. Now, heaven-defying artifacts like the axe and the sunset divine bow had all evolved to the supreme level, so he knew all about artifacts of this level like the back of his hand. In that instant earlier, he could acutely determine that the aura of this god-slaying tablet was not just a little stronger than any ordinary supreme-level heaven-defying artifact, but was a whole lot stronger. In fact, he did not know if it was an illusion, but he could faintly feel that there was a faint aura of a sovereign divine weapon. Could it be that this was a heaven-defying divine weapon that was evolving into a sovereign divine weapon? The black-bearded old man laughed hoarsely. "Brother Qin, you even have a sovereign divine weapon, so a heaven-defying divine weapon is nothing to you. Why don't you just let us have it?" "That's right. A heaven-defying divine weapon is not of much value to you even if you have it, but it's different in our hands. And along the way, we have worked hard and helped you quite a bit." The others all opened their mouths and laughed. Hearing that, Qin Feiyang could not help but look at Yuan Zhongtian. Yuan Zhongtian said with a voice transmission, "This old man feels that we cannot just let them have the god-slaying tablet." Qin Feiyang thought to himself, "To be honest, I do not want to let them have it either, because this stone tablet could very well be a heaven-defying divine weapon that is about to evolve into a sovereign divine weapon. All the more we cannot let them have it." Hearing that, Yuan Zhongtian immediately said with a voice transmission, now that they were facing the dragons, what they lacked the most was a sovereign divine weapon. An additional sovereign divine weapon was equivalent to an additional chance of victory. How could such a divine object be given to others? Seeing Qin Feiyang and Yuan Zhongtian exchanging glances, it was obvious that they were secretly discussing something. The black-bearded old man and the others looked at each other, and their brows furrowed together. "Everyone, from the looks of it, they do not intend to let us have it." A middle-aged man said with a voice transmission, "Then what do we do? Do we have to shed all pretense of cordiality and fight with them for it?" Another middle-aged man asked secretly. "One is the infamous Qin Feiyang, and the other is the renowned Yuan Zhongtian. How can we afford to offend them? Moreover, although there are only two of them, but if they really come to blows, we are no match for them. After all, both of them have mastered the highest level of profoundness. Then are we just going to let it go like this?" It was not easy for us to come across a sovereign-grade heaven-defying divine weapon, and according to my observations, this god-slaughtering tablet is no ordinary sovereign-grade heaven-defying divine weapon. Why don't we launch a sneak attack? Anyway, Qin Feiyang has already left the sovereign divine weapon to the white-eyed wolf. As long as we are a little more nimble, the chances of a successful sneak attack is still very high. Yuan Zhongtian should have a sovereign divine weapon as well. Impossible. The temple's sovereign divine weapon does not belong to Yun Zhongtian alone. There is also the old master of the He family. He has no way of controlling it. Moreover, if the temple's sovereign divine weapon is really with Yun Zhongtian, then more than half a month ago, when we encountered the storm, he should have already taken it out. The group of people were also plotting in secret, their killing intent rising. The entire scene fell into a dead silence. Yun Zhongtian swept his gaze over the group of people and his eyes flashed as he transmitted his voice. Brother Qin, these people should be plotting in secret as well. If it is inconvenient for you to speak, then let this old man do it. They are indeed plotting in secret because I can already feel a trace of killing intent. Qin Feiyong said to himself. Is there? Yun Zhongtian was taken aback as he asked suspiciously. Why didn't I feel it? Because of the slaughter domain, my perception towards killing intent is a little sharper than all of you. These people's killing intent is not very strong and they are very hesitant. It is obvious that they are wary of us. Qin Feiyong transmitted his voice to him. So that's how it is. Yun Zhongtian was enlightened as he sighed to himself. Indeed, in the various restricted lands, the greatest danger is the human heart. I hope they do not do that because I still have a rather good impression of them. And along the way, they have indeed helped me and the white-eyed wolf quite a bit. Qin Feiyong said to himself. Yun Zhongtian was silent for a while before he turned his head to look at the black-bearded old man and the group of people and said with a smile, Everyone, this old man has taken a liking to this god-slaying monument, and I hope that you can give it to this old man. Of course, it has not been easy for us to come this far, and this old man is willing to use other divine artifacts as compensation for all of you. To Yun Zhongtian, this was already being rather courteous, because with his power and status, would he still need to seek the approval of others for anything he wanted? He could just snatch it from them. Chapter 35-32. Hearing Yun Zhongtian's words, the black-bearded old man and the others looked at each other. If he was really going to compensate them, then at least it would not be a loss. Yun Zhongtian waved his hand, and a black spear appeared. It was about 3 meters long, and its entire body shone with a divine light, exuding a great divine aura. He smiled and said, This is also a supreme-grade heaven-defying divine artifact, and this old man will give it to you as compensation. This? The group of people stared at the black spear in a daze. They had thought that Yun Zhongtian would give them a legendary heaven-defying divine artifact or something else, but they had never thought that he would give them a supreme-grade heaven-defying divine artifact of the same value. The black spear was a supreme-grade heaven-defying divine artifact, and the god-slaying monument was also a supreme-grade heaven-defying divine artifact. There was no need to exchange it, right? Could it be that this god-slaying monument was really not just any supreme-grade heaven-defying divine artifact? Will that do? Yun Zhongtian asked. The black-bearded old man waved his hand and said, This is just too valuable. How could we be so shameless as to take your supreme-grade heaven-defying divine artifact? It's fine. Yun Zhongtian smiled and decisively wiped off the blood contract before handing it over to the black-bearded old man. This? The black-bearded old man hesitated a moment before he said with a hoarse laugh, Since Elder Yun is so kind to send us off, then we won't stand on ceremony. Immediately after saying that, he took the black spear. Yun Zhongtian smiled and turned to walk over to the god-slaying monument, ready to drip his blood to claim ownership. Asterisk boom. Asterisk just at that moment. Not too far away, a powerful aura stirred up a cloud of sand and dust. Asterisk whoosh. Asterisk following closely behind. More than 10 divine artifacts charged out from under the desert, bringing with them a sharp glint that could tear the heavens and earth apart as they charged towards Qin Feiyong and the others. Qin Feiyong and Yun Zhongtian were shocked, thinking that it was the black-bearded old man and the others who were ambushing them. But when they turned their heads to look, they realized that there were people lying in ambush here beforehand. At the same time, the black-bearded old man and the others were stunned as well, and when they saw the dozens of divine artifacts, their eyes narrowed. They were all supreme-grade heaven-defying divine artifacts. Retreat. Coming back to his senses, the black-bearded old man shouted, and the 12 of them immediately retreated. Qin Feiyong and Yun Zhongtian's eyes to look at each other. You really don't know death. Didn't he see who the target of the sneak attack was? Boom. With a wave of Yun Zhongtian's hand, destruction laws rolled out and a gigantic statue of a deity appeared out of thin air. It was the highest level of destruction laws, the god of destruction. The god of destruction was like a demon king. His palm contained the power to destroy the heavens and earth. With a series of cracking sounds, the dozen divine artifacts shattered and fragments flew everywhere. This is the destructive power of the profound meanings. When the black-bearded old man and the others saw this scene, their eyes were filled with shock. Fortunately, they had suppressed the greed in their hearts before this, or just Yun Zhongtian alone would have been able to kill them all in an instant. Who is it? Get the hell out here. Yun Zhongtian's gaze swept towards the desert, and he shouted out. So it's Senior Yun. I'm really sorry. I didn't know it was you. If I had known, I definitely wouldn't have dared to do anything. Accompanied by an apologetic laugh, 15 people walked out of the desert. There were men and women, young and old. Without exception, they were all perfect sovereigns. The one who spoke was a middle-aged man dressed in white, about 40 years old. He was 7 feet tall and had a gentle smile on his face. The moment these people appeared, they waved their hands and the dozen or so broken divine artifacts disappeared into their bodies. Yun Zhongtian swept his gaze over them one by one and finally looked at the middle-aged man in white. He asked suspiciously, "You are?" "I am Ma Zhang. Just a nobody," said Yi Fujian. The middle-aged man in white cupped his hands and smiled. Yun Zhongtian sneered, "And nobody dares to sneak up on me?" The middle-aged man in white smiled awkwardly and said, "Didn't I just say it? We didn't recognize you. If we have offended you, I hope Senior can forgive us." Yun Zhongtian frowned. He really didn't dare to believe such nonsense. He asked, "Then when did you all arrive?" "Not long ago. We have always been wandering in the central region. A few days ago, we saw this stone tablet from afar and came over to take a look out of curiosity. Just a while ago, when we rushed over, we found that there was already someone in front of the stone tablet, so we quietly sneaked over. We didn't expect it to be you." Ma Zhang smiled. Yun Zhongtian looked at Ma Zhang, not saying a word. Ma Zhang had a magnanimous look on his face as he looked at Qin Feiyong at the side and cupped his hands, saying, "I believe this brother must be the famous Qin Feiyong." "That is me." Qin Feiyong nodded. Seeing Qin Feiyong nod his head in acceptance, the eyes of the dozen or so people beside Ma Zhang shrank slightly. In the current Sky Cloud realm, you could be anyone but Yun Zhongtian, but you would never not know the name Qin Feiyong. Ma Zhang sized up Qin Feiyong and said with a smile, "Nice to meet you. I didn't expect that not only would I meet Senior Yun, I would also meet Brother Qin. I also didn't expect that there would be so many people in the central region." Qin Feiyong smiled faintly. I'm ashamed. Although we have been wandering in the central region, we haven't even found a decent divine artifact. We have been wasting our time." Ma Zhang waved his hand. The black-bearded old man walked to Qin Feiyong and Yun Zhongtian's side, looking at Ma Zhang and said, "Ma Zhang, don't be modest. Look at you now. Each of you has a supreme divine artifact. Isn't this harvest enough?" Ma Zhang was taken aback, looking at the black-bearded old man and said with a smile, "You're here too?" The black-bearded old man's face darkened. Had he been treating him like air? "You know him?" Qin Feiyong asked inwardly. "Yes." The black-bearded old man nodded and transmitted his voice. "Brother Qin, Senior Yun, you have to be careful. Don't be fooled by his polite appearance on the surface. In fact, his heart is very dark." "What do you mean?" Qin Feiyong was curious. Most people who wander in the heavy region know this person's character. Burning, killing, robbing, bullying the weak. He can be said to be a despicable villain. No, a despicable villain. And he has an older brother called Mashan. It is said that he has already mastered a supreme profound. The two brothers are the same. When they run out of elixirs, they will rob. When they run out of resources, they will also rob. When they encounter a divine artifact, needless to say, they will not give up until they get it. In any case, in order to achieve their goal, they will do anything. But it is also because of this that many people want to follow them and take advantage of them. Just like the 14 people around Mahjong now, they all follow the Ma brothers. The black-bearded old man secretly explained. Qin Feiyong and Yun Zhongtian looked at each other when they heard this. They were almost confused by Ma Zheng's appearance. Wait. Suddenly, the black-bearded old man looked at Ma Zheng and the others and frowned. Where is Ma Shan? Why don't I see him? The two brothers have always been inseparable. Qin Feiyong and Yun Zhongtian couldn't help but look at Ma Zheng and the others. Boom. Just at this moment, the sand and dust beneath their feet churned and a black figure leapt out, holding a dagger in both hands. It shone with a ghostly light, like two venomous snakes, heading straight for Qin Feiyong and Yun Zhongtian's chi-sees. This scene was too sudden. Not knowing that Qin Feiyong and Yun Zhongtian, even the black-bearded old man and the others would never have thought that someone would be able to sneak up to them without them knowing. Yun Zhongtian could not react in time, and the dagger sank into his lower abdomen, blood flowing freely. But Qin Feiyong, in that critical moment, leaned his body slightly, and when the dagger sank into his body, it just brushed past his chi-sees. He looked at Yun Zhongtian, and his face darkened. Grabbing Yun Zhongtian by the shoulder, he quickly retreated. The wound on his lower abdomen was bleeding profusely. Ha. Ma Zheng on the opposite side immediately laughed out loud. The other 14 people looked at Qin Feiyong and Yun Zhongtian, their faces full of mockery. But the person who had ambushed Qin Feiyong and Yun Zhongtian lowered his head and looked at the blood on the dagger, his eyes full of shock. This person was about 1 meter and 70 centimeters tall, emaciated and skinny, with a head full of long black hair. His long and narrow eyes were like a pair of venomous snake's eyes, filled with a sinister glint. This blood is actually purplish gold. This person was Ma Shan. He looked at the purplish gold dragon blood on the dagger, and his face slowly showed a trace of surprise. Not only was it purplish gold blood, it even carried an extremely pure dragon's might. Ma Shan, this has nothing to do with us. Don't kill us. The black-bearded old man came back to his senses and immediately retreated to the side of the burly man and the others like he was running for his life. It was not just the black-bearded old man, but the burly man and the others were also looking at Ma Shan in horror. Ma Shan raised his head and looked at the black-bearded old man and the others, his eyes full of disdain before his gaze turned to fall upon Qin Feiyong. Big brother, beautifully done. Ma Zheng walked to Ma Shan's side and laughed heartily. With a wave of his hand, his 14 subordinates immediately stepped forward and surrounded Qin Feiyong and Yun Zhongtian. Seeing this, Qin Feiyong and Yun Zhongtian's eyes flashed with a murderous intent. Ma Shan's gaze finally fell on the wound on Qin Feiyong's lower abdomen and frowned. Are you a transformation of the divine dragon? Ma Zheng and the others heard this and looked at Ma Shan suspiciously. A transformation of the divine dragon? What did he mean? Look at his wound, Ma Shan said. Ma Zheng and the others immediately looked at Qin Feiyong's wound, and they were immediately dumbfounded. They did not notice before that this person's blood was purplish gold in color. The strangest thing was that it carried a dragon's might. No wonder Ma Shan asked if he was a transformation of the divine dragon. Qin Feiyong scanned the group of people and chuckled. I don't know if I'm a transformation of the divine dragon, but I know that you're in trouble. Imminent disaster? Your chi-si has already been destroyed and you still dare to talk nonsense? Ma Zheng threw his head back and laughed. That's right. The famous Qin Feiyong and the temple's deputy temple master Yun Zhongtian. I thought you guys were powerful, but it turns out that you're all idiots. After we kill all of you, we brothers will be able to make a name for ourselves. The others also laughed and laughed. They thought that Qin Feiyong's chi-si had been destroyed. Not only them, even Ma Shan and Yun Zhongtian, who sneaked up on Qin Feiyong, thought that Qin Feiyong's chi-si had been destroyed. Because the saber had indeed penetrated Qin Feiyong's lower abdomen and it was still bleeding. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.